Hello, good evening and welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to another rapid-fire racing round of action in the UK Sim Racing Community's Multiclass League Season 3, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and sponsored proudly by the virtual racing school of VRS. We're heading towards the crescendo point of the championship season. The climax is just around the corner. It is round 8 of 9, and we are here today in Belgium for the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, a circuit that was once a absolutely high-speed, high-risk tour into the Ardennes forest on the local roads. Well, over the course of its extensive 80-plus year history, this circuit has gradually been neutered down for safety regards, understandably, to become a permanent road racing course, whereby its length may have been cut by the best part of 2/3, but the one key thing that has remained the same is that it is a circuit with absolute character over its 4.35-mile length and 19 corners, with many of the corners being household names, including the bus stop chicane, La Source, Rouge, Radion, the Kemmel Straight, and Les Cornes. Is a circuit which is absolutely iconic, whether it's club level racing, domestic level racing, or international racing that takes to it, and you only have to look throughout its entire history to see what kinds of motorsport class racing come to it each and every year, whether it be Formula 1, the 24 Hours of Spa, GT3s, or everything in between. Also Porsche Cup within that mix as well. Is a circuit that is one of the big circuits in the world. Indeed, you could argue if there are 7 wonders in the world in terms of locations, they're definitely on the list of the 7 circuits of the world, no doubt about it. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from the circuit side, available only on the UK Sim Racing media platforms of YouTube and Twitch. That's YouTube at youtube.com and search for UK Sim Racing or UKSR. And welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube, including there Sean Cranley Swash, Medmo or Matt Edmondson, and also Anstis Races, who isn't racing tonight, is not Nathan Anstis. We're very happy to have you tuning in all the same, Nathan, and I hope you're doing well and having a good weekend, whether it be a bank holiday weekend in the United Kingdom, of course. And if you're not tuning in via YouTube, you could be tuning in via Twitch at twitch.tv/UK Sim Racing. And welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. And don't be shy, feel free to say hi if you are on Twitch or if you are on YouTube. We don't bite here in the YouTube chat or the Twitch chat. The only biting we do is on the breaks, and that's into each and every braking zone. In the commentary booth, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I'll be bringing you all your racing action tonight, and indeed for the entirety of the season. And what a season it has been so far, and we've still got plenty of action lying in wait. Only 2 rounds remaining, one of which is today. Now, previous broadcasts have been post-round, but this broadcast is live from circuit side, so the racing you are seeing on screen today is happening live, and indeed we couldn't make it up, we couldn't script it, no matter how hard we try, and we don't script it whatsoever. I can probably show that even in the post-round broadcast, but this is live from circuit side, and we're very happy to say that we are back to live broadcasts for the remainder of the season here, and thank you for understanding, for indulging us in the post-round broadcasts that have tried to be as close as possible to the raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls at home. But let's start talking a little bit more about the crunch point of the season then, because we are round number 8. What's lying in store and what has come before it? Well, as we can see, we are now on the 25th of May. We're here in Belgium for the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. After today, we've only got one more round of racing to go, and we're making our way back to the United States or America for the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle, or perhaps more appropriately, the Raw through the Belle Isle Park circuit, now disused in the American city of Detroit, but all the way up to 2022, used for a variety of racing series, perhaps most prominently IndyCar. But prior to all of this, the story really has been one on an international scale, which has seen our drivers roll the way around the world in a variety of LMP, LMP2, and what is GT3 class machinery. In fact, GTP, I should say, rather than LMP. And as we started off in round number 1, it was in Portugal at the Autodromo Internacional do Algarve on the 30th of March. And we got to see our drivers absolutely take on treacherous conditions there, where a soaked circuit leading to absolutely sublime racing and a lot of importance on strategy. In round number 2, well, the wetness continued as we made our way to Japan for the Fuji International Speedway. And there in the foothills of Mount Fuji, it was all about trying to deal with the conditions, with very little rain actually falling when we went into qualifying and the race, but a circuit that was gradually drying. It was all about the gamble starting on the wet versus starting on the dries and the transition. In round number 3, it was calmer and cooler conditions, and also sunny conditions at a Long Beach Street circuit in the US city in California. And as our drivers went racing around Long Beach, well, it was all about the walls looming close, albeit our drivers doing very well there to stay out of danger of the walls and also managing the traffic. And we got to see some brilliant battles there, particularly in the LMP2 and GT3 classes. Then in round number 4, we made our way to Italy for the start of an Italian doubleheader as interspersed by a mid-season break week. And the first of 2 Italian rounds on the 20th of April was at the Imola circuit, or 9 in 4 as the Autodromo Internacional Enzo Dino Ferrari. And after that, and after our break week, we made our way from one classic Italian circuit to another Italian classic, and that was at the Autodromo Nacional Monza, or the Temple of Speed. But for round 5, then round 6 saw us make our way back to the United States of America for a doubleheader, the first of which was back in the US state of California at the Laguna Seca circuit between Monterey and San Ballinass on the 11th of May, where it was tight, it was tricky, and the corkscrew claimed to many, but the thing that was important there, we got to see some absolutely fabulous racing action, and none more so at the front of the field, as Patrik Thomsen may have taken victory overall in the GTP class, but he was kept honest every step of the way by Austin William Campbell. And in round number 7, last time out, the rollercoaster ride of road racing that was Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, we got to see our drivers roar the way up, down, and over the circuit, and well, what an absolutely brilliant circuit it was there, as we got to see our drivers go toe-to-toe over the entire distance, and well, we head into it tonight with plenty more racing to come, and perhaps one of the most notable events, of course, at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta was the superb driving from Eric Rose there, who absolutely run away into the distance, and indeed in every race he's been in the GT3 PRO class, where he has been dominant, but at Road Atlanta he showed everybody how it's done in a GT3. But coming into tonight then, well, let's talk a little bit about our circuit, and it is the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. We're going to be seeing our drivers take on the Grand Prix pit layout of the circuit, located near the village of Francorchamps in the municipality of Stavelot in the province of Liège in the Wallonia region of Belgium. I think I've got that absolutely right this time around. If not, feel free to correct me. And well, we should say a big thank you to iRacing.com for the circuit maps that come as part of the brilliant simulator. Of course, this series has been hosted on the iRacing Simulator platform, the one and only available on PC. As we can see here, a circuit that's absolutely iconic with regards to its layout, with its 19 corners there, absolutely packed with variety, where it be low-speed hairpins, low-speed chicanes, medium-speed chicanes, such as the run through the phalanges at turns at 12 and 13, also the high-speed sweepers, such as Pullon, the absolutely treacherous Pullon corner at turns 10 and 11, and also you do have plenty of corners that are highly cambered or off-camber, such as the run down to the Rivage hairpin at turn number 8. But for it all, and around here, there's plenty of overtaking opportunities, there's plenty of room for multiclass racing action, and add it all up, when it does mean you have the perfect boiling point for what could be some fantastic racing. Indeed, tempers could fly, some battles could be key, and over the course of it, who'll be taking victory to go to Detroit in a week's time? Well, coming from our circuit map then, and into our rules, let's give you a quick reminder, because we're not allowed to go racing without rules, otherwise it wouldn't be fair. And as we can see, setup-wise, it's an open setup series with fuel loads restricted based on car class as follows. GTPs will take 80% of their standard fuel tank, LMP2s 100% of their fuel tank, and GT3s 60%. Qualifying wise, a closed qualifying format shall be used with drivers having 4 flying laps available to them, plus their out lap, and that will be in a closed session, we should reiterate, whereby all the drivers have an isolated instance of circuit available to them. Race wise, the race shall commence via a double fold rolling start, as is a tradition of the UK Sim Racing Multiclass League, and each car class will be separated by 5 to 10 seconds as managed by the class pole sitter, with the GTPs ahead of the LMP2s and the LMP2s ahead of the GT3s. And we should point out the GT3s are intermingled, so if an AM driver in GT3 qualifies on pole position, they start at the head of the entirety of the GT3 pack. They do not get put into a GT3 AM class that follows the pros. Indeed, the pros and the AMs of the GT3s all intermingle together, and that makes it even more exciting. Now, the race shall start for all classes when the GTP class is showing the green flag. Indeed, they'll be the ones who dictate the pace when we go green. There's one mandatory pit stop available out there for fuel, but changing tyres is entirely optional. Each driver has one fast repair available as well, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 20 or more instant points, and all race shooting shall be conducted post-race. So those instant points will be for contacts, off tracks, and also loss of control, but any instance between drivers, they will be sorted after the race has concluded. And a reminder as well, as per usual, we do have, thanks to our title sponsor, the Virtual Racing School, or VRS, a giveaway ongoing for this round, indeed for every round of the championship as part of these broadcasts, and we'll be giving away a VRS competitive subscriptions to our competitors and to you guys and girls tuning in, our viewers, albeit we should caveat it on YouTube only due to limitations. And for this round, our giveaways are as follows. There's one 3-month subscription available for a raffle draw from all of our drivers who have 0 penalty points up to this round, and we should point out this is not iRacing penalty points, it's championship penalty points as awarded by our race directors and stewards through post-round stewarding. However, we must caveat it and say that any driver who's eligible must also have raced in at least 6 of the first 8 rounds. So we obviously take the end of today, and whoever's raced in at least 6 of 8 rounds after today, well, they'll be eligible for that draw. We also have a 2-month subscription available, and that's a raffle draw from any drivers who finish this round across any of our classes. So all they've got to do is get to the checker flag, and then we do have our traditional 1-month subscription available, and that is a raffle draw from any YouTube viewers who type VRS in the chat. Now, I know some of you are going to be very eager to. Don't quite do so just yet, because we haven't quite started that giveaway, but give us a brief moment. 3, 2, 1, and that 1-month subscription draw is now available, so feel free to type the letters VRS in capitals, that's Victor Romeo Sierra, in the YouTube chat, and you'll be putting yourself into that raffle draw, which we will do alongside the others at the end of the racing during today's broadcast. So therefore, if you want to be in with a chance of 1-month Virtual Racing School subscription, well, you just got to type the letters VRS into the YouTube chat. But that's enough rules, regulation, giveaways, and everything in between. We're all here for one thing, and that is the racing. situation. Well, let's head back to the circuit side and walk you through our schedule for today. Times in British summertime, that's BST, or Universal Coordinate Time +1 at UTC +1. And as we can see, in just under 4 minutes' time, we'll be going into our penultimate qualifying session, 10 minutes in duration, as per usual. All drivers out there in their closed qualifying format looking to deliver a golden lap time there. And we'll talk a little bit more about the importance of qualifying when we do go into it. Before the race, of course, that is, and after qualifying, we're at 10 past 8 this evening. That's when the race will get underway, and that'll be 60 minutes in duration, lights out, and away it will go all the way. And hopefully we've got a little bit more lighting because it is quite dark at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps at the moment, and hopefully we do have a bit of lighting out there. There was the rumour of rain, a low chance of rain, but that doesn't seem to be coming. What definitely has come is cooler temperatures when ambient and track temperature both are 19 degrees centigrade, a very high level of humidity, it must be said, and a lot of clouds if rain is going to appear, well, it may appear over the race distance. But right now, no sign of rain on the horizon as we are to understand it. But what is on the side of the horizon are a number of drivers out there looking to give it their best, including that Xander Hill here for Tiki Simsport, a man who definitely has had a lot of pace in that Ferrari 499P. But the only thing that's happened so far this season when he's been on the grid, he's qualified well. Alternatively, it's not gone well in qualifying, but subsequently, what's happened in the race, he's sometimes not even been able to make it through turn 1 without ending up in the barrier. Indeed, Fuji in round number 2 was a prime example of that, where I think he had the confidence to potentially take on a number of drivers, including Patrik Thomsen for the win, but it didn't quite work out for Xander, and he'll be hoping for a much more straightforward day today. If bad luck could attach itself to a driver in the GTP class, then it would be this man. That's not to be rude about him, but that is the way it has really played out for him over the entirety of the season, and he'll be hoping for a bit more of a straightforward day today as he parks up there and makes his way to the pit lane. But as our GTP drivers are mostly in the pits at the moment, there's no real GTPs out there at this time, let's talk a little bit about the LMP2 situation, because in the LMP2 Championship, it is a point between this man, James Ibram for Effect Simulations, and his rival Øystein Herfjord, both of Effect Simulations, but in sister teams in terms of the base team and Club Sport and Carbon. But Ibram leading by a single point over Øystein Herfjord, who we see here in the number 907. What's been the difference between the two of them? Well, Ibram's been the faster driver in terms of raw pace, where it being qualifying, fastest laps, and over the race distance. However, the consistency and the fortune has come to Øystein. He has been the more consistent driver, particularly over the last couple of rounds, and where James has found instance, but he's recovered very well for them, Øystein, meanwhile, has been absolutely untouched by comparison, or has emerged unscathed from the chaos that sometimes does happen in the LMP2 class, albeit we're not saying there should be no chaos in the LMP2 class, because I'll tell you one thing right now, ladies and gents, if it weren't for the LMP2s, we would not have had some of the absolute season highlights we've had, and indeed, we have to look to the likes of Øystein, also James Ibram, Tom Farr, Jarrett Lee, and I do believe, not on the grid today, unfortunately, but Helder Gonçalves, who really have brought the LMP2 class to absolute spotlight territory when it's come to brilliant battling. But it means that going into this round, it is only a point between Herfjord and Ibram, and that is exactly how we want our championships to be positioned. And we couldn't make it up, to be fair. Ibram did look as though he was running away with things early on, but then he has been brought back in, and Herfjord right now, the slower of the two drives on single lap pace, well, all the practice is definitely paying off the dividends as we then come to the GT3s. And well, quite appropriately there, we look to our leading GT3 Pro driver in terms of this practice time, albeit he's not the championship leader coming into this round, as Eric Rose have not quite been able to attend each and every round. That would be in the favour of Kasper Brøckner, with a 15-point lead. He could emerge from today, your GT3 Pro champion with round to spare, albeit drivers such as Sean Cranley Swash here will try and keep him honest, after Cranley Swash did pick up that second place at Road Atlanta, a brilliant drive there, one of his best drives of the season. And well, Kasper Brøckner may have been the force of his own, but Cranley Swash, Cy Anstey, Jack Barker, and a number of other drivers all fighting for the right to be the runner-up, with only 18 points separating second through to sixth. And in the GT3 AM class, where it's going to be the big question of will it be James Foster or Matt Edmondson, and today could be another turn in that tower. As you can see, Foster parts there, Edmondson a little bit further down the pit lane, but both eager to go. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, the checker flag comes out in practice, and after practice comes qualifying, so you know what time it is. It's time to see who's going to put it on pole here at Spa. Well, 10 minutes, and we're going to find out. And so here we go, as time moves forward a little bit, qualifying gets underway. 10 minutes, it's go, go, go for everybody out there. And well, while our driver who's very eager to make his way out the pit lane as he emerges from behind the pit barriers, it's going to be none other than GTP Championship leader Patrik Thomsen, who, if he's able to make results go his way today, and indeed results do not go the way that his rivals want to, well then Patrik Thomsen will be sealing the championship crown with a round to spare. And well, that number one on the car for a reason, and he'll be looking to retain that number one coming out of today play at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. He roars his way down the Kemmel Straight here, but this man, Austin William Campbell, in the effect simulations at BMW M V8 Hybrid, will be throwing everything at this one to try and score a win back against Thomsen, because to be fair to William Campbell, it's not as though he's been slow, but Patrik Thomsen every time has just had a 10th in his tank by comparison with the BMW driver, and that really has been the story of the season between them. Early doors in the opening couple of rounds, well, it was Thomas Cope who took victory at the Algarve circuit in the Porsche 963 for Olympus Esports in those challenging conditions where the Porsche absolutely shone, albeit Patrik Thomsen did try to fight his way through for victory but came on too late. At Fuji, Thomsen in the Ferrari with its all-wheel drive in the 499P, we absolutely flew off into distance, but Austin William Campbell did everything he could to try and fight for that runner-up spot. But since then, in what has been more stable conditions and dry conditions, we have seen the story each and every round where Thomsen has been the faster driver and Austin William Campbell has typically had to play the game of catch-up, but the gap between the two of them has come down to minuscule amounts over qualifying distance, and could we see today William Campbell potentially strike a blow first in the proverbial boxing ring of GTP combat in terms of trying to take that pole position? Well, we look forward to seeing him try, because he has come close on multiple occasions, but Thomsen has always had an answer, and has he already got an answer coming into today. Well, as they make the one around, we do look to Jack Barker in the made for racing Acura NSX Evo 22, and the driver who was hoping there was going to be some wet weather here today at Spa-Francorchamps, but no sign of it on the cards whatsoever, and that is going to be a little bit frustrating for him as he makes his way around. Understandably so, as we do break up our classes there on the left-hand side of your screen. Our timing tower decided to be a little bit temperamental, but we finally tame it, and as he heads in towards Blanchimont and out of it, well, right now for Barker, he'll be hoping that he's going to be able to string together a lap, which is going to put him quite far up there, because in his own words, he's previously felt that he's not on the pace in the dry compared to a number of drivers. He needs those changeable conditions, but perhaps he can shine today even with the absence of a spot of rain. As he heads across the timeline, he'll go into his first flying lap, and then looking a little bit further up the running order in terms of the pace of machinery, let's come to the LMP2s, and we come to Ryan Walker. And as he makes his way down in towards Lake On for the first time under attack conditions, this will be his first flying lap. And we have seen previously from Ryan Walker, he's had some great qualifying performances and had a great performance in qualifying at Road Atlanta last time out, his best qualifying performance of the season. But in the race, things did not quite work out for Walker. It went backwards quite early on, particularly with a huge chunk coming out of turn 5 into the wall, if my memory serves me correctly. And therefore for Walker, it's going to be today one of those days whereby he'll want the pace again, but he'll also want a bit of a calmer and cooler race, albeit it does not always work out, it must be said, and sometimes it's just completely out of your hands. Such is the way of Lady Luck in motorsport, and indeed in any sport, where they do say for every victory and for every success, there's always an element of luck out there, or indeed for every dismal day and difficulty or loss, there's also an element of luck. But whether it be luck, whether it be skill, or something in between, or a combination of two, one thing that definitely can't be taken away from all the drivers here is their ability to absolutely deliver week in, week out, and we have seen it time and time again, as we do say hello to Closet Sim Racer there, who is cheering on James Foster. I believe that may actually be James Foster, I do believe there, and in the YouTube chat, well, we look forward to seeing what he can do in his battle with Matt Edmondson. Speaking of Foster and Edmondson, well, here's James Foster as he takes a little bit of trip there to the gravel, coming out of Jackie X corner, named after the infamous Formula 1 driver and Belgium, and as he makes his way in towards Poon, down through the double left-hander here, turns 10 and 11, we look to Edmondson, just a little bit further back there, but both of them practically at the same point on the circuit right now, both looking to get those first laps on the board, and well, Edmondson has been matched by Foster, both in qualifying trim, in fastest lap trim, and overall race pace trim, but for Edmondson, well, right now he's looking to break a run of bad luck, because in the last two rounds he has been leading in the race over the distance, and then an instant of some description has come along and taken away that lead right at the final hurdle. Last time out Road Atlanta, it was traffic side by side with Edmondson going into the S's. Foster was in a prime position to capitalise and sailed on through there, and Edmondson in the end, I think it would feel as though it was daylight robbery, albeit that's multiclass robbery for you. But as he roars his way on through it and in towards Blanchimont, well, we now have the first lap times coming in from our GTP drivers, and it's Jon Williams who's put the benchmark at a 202.552. However, we should carry out the fact that a lot of our GTP drivers will be using their first flying lap as an additional warm-up lap, where they up the pace to approximately 90% of where they want to be. They just make sure that tyre temperature is there, because keep in mind, with the updated tyre model, I should say, for our GTPs, and indeed our LMP2 machines as well, and the GT3s are getting it as the next seasonal update on iRacing, which is fantastic to see in here. Well, these GTP machines, or the prototypes in general, do need a lot of tyre warming in order to get the most out of that tyre compound, and it normally takes at least 2 laps before they really do feel as though they're in the zone. But lap times continue to come on in. And as we do see the LMP2 initial lap time coming from Øystein Herfjord there, of a 2:07.428, with James Ibram at 7.5 seconds back. I can imagine he's used the first flying lap as a secondary warm-up lap, so therefore that's not a real indicator of where he is. But we are starting to see some closer times in the GT3s. Foster striking the initial blow of a 2:18.717 to Jon Davis by 600. And well, speaking of Jon Davis, here he is in the wrong stuff McLaren 720S Evo, a driver who's definitely enjoyed some great results this season. Enjoyed some good scraps, particularly at Road Atlanta. He was in a freeway scrap to be inside the top 5, which in the end did swing his way towards the end of the day. But as he comes on through the left into right, as from our screen, but it's the right into left actually from a driver's perspective of Lacombe, works down towards Ravage, with Davis looking absolutely glued to the circuit there. And I can imagine he'll be very happy the way he set out at McLaren. That's a happy car because there's no sign of any rearward oversteer, any drift in that car. It looks absolutely planted. But speaking of absolutely planted here, well, Patrik Thomsen hasn't put his first lap on the board so far, but onto the brakes he goes then for what is the final run of the bus stop chicane, and he decides to roll it out. He's gone purple in sectors 1 and 2, and as he comes across the line, what's this going to be for Thomsen? Well, Nordenhoff raises the bar, and William Campbell goes even further on a 2:1.639, but Thomsen, I think, now has got it all to do in one last-ditch effort here, as he's going to make his way around. The next time he comes around, well, he won't have enough time to put in another lap, and that's one of the big things of this qualifying session. With the lap time here being in excess of 2 minutes for all of our classes, it means when we do see the clock strike 10 minutes, well, there's no overtime in effect. The qualifying session ends, so our drivers will not be getting in a full flying lap here. They've got to deliver those laps sooner rather than later, which puts a little bit more time pressure on this qualifying session as Thomsen roars his way on down the Kemmel Straight, and right now down in 6th place, where he wants to get this lap together, because if he doesn't, he's going to be starting a long way down the GTP field, and he'll be making it today a lot more difficult for himself. But speaking of improvements from drivers, well, James Foster making his way towards the timeline. He's currently a provisional pole sitter in GT3 AM, and in terms of GT3 overall, he's 6th. He's going to promote himself up to GT3 overall 5th, but he'll stay on pole for GT3 AM, a 2:18.481. That's an absolutely brilliant lap. Puts 3 tenths between himself and James Connolly. Matt Edmondson almost 6 tenths back off of that, a 2:19.051. Well, right now, Edmondson is the man who's got to find a bit more time out there, because he's not looking strong in qualifying. He might have to try and make this up in the race, but the momentum and the pendulum seems to be swinging to Foster so far in qualifying, but qualifying is just one lap of many that the race will have, and that's going to be on the minds of a number of drivers. I believe we're starting to get a little bit of sun break coming through the clouds elsewhere on circuit. At least we can see it on the car there, but right now it's very cloudy as well, and that is not going to be helping the eyesight of many of our drivers. But rowing his way on down, well, Edmondson can't look at the timing screens. All we can do at this point is focus on what he can do in the car. That'll be the hardest part. It's the hardest part for any not to become distracted by what others are doing around you. It's all the mind games there of trying to become a champion as Patrik Thomsen. Well, speaking of the mind games here, how late in the day has he left it? This will be his final flying lap. He's going to look to get in as he comes charging and past the Sunrise there now into the braking zone at 4 turns 18 and 19 into the bus stop chicane. He's gone purple in sectors 1 and 2. In 3 it's a personal best. It's not quite purple all the way round, but he only needs to be faster than everybody else, not set purple sectors every step of the way. He comes across the timeline. It's a 2-minute 1.140, and that is 4.5 tenths faster as Austin William Campbell crossed the line. He improves to a 1.604, but there's not enough of a response in Austin William Campbell, and Patrik Thomsen leaves it to the last lap in the day and says, there you go. Gets the job done for the Williams Sim Racing Academy team, and Austin William Campbell once again thwarted it, would seem, in this qualifying session. Zander Hill crossed the line at 2:02.581, puts him 5th in the overall and GTP order. What about in LMP2? Well, they're coming to the end of their final flying laps. What will be their 3rd and final flying lap, so they won't get the time for the 4th lap, and Øystein Herfjord making his way on around. James Ibram's a bit further up the road, and Ibram has crossed the line, and he goes on to provisional pole at 2:07.415. What can Herfjord do here as he makes his way on around? Well, he's going to have enough time to get to his final destination, but will his final destination see him take a prime ticket to 1st place in qualifying, or will he be stuck for 2nd? Here we go then, through the right and into left. He's 12 thousandths off previously, and well, all the sectors so far have pointed towards he hasn't improved. Runs a little bit wide there coming out of the bus stop chicane, makes his way to line, and well, he's throwing everything out. This is wheeled the car on, and Herfjord in the end does not improve, so James Ibram will take pole position in the LMP2 qualifying provisionally, unless anybody else can improve out there at a very short moment's notice. And well, a big surprise, but a welcome one to be certain if you're a Made for Racing fan. Jack Barker will be taking the 2nd spot in GT3 Pro ahead of Sight Anthony Shaw and Cranny Swash, and he's been able to sneak ahead. Kasper Brøckner in the end has to settle for 4th place in the old dudes in cars Ford Mustang. I don't think he'll be too upset about that, but definitely a change of roles here in the qualifying session. Eric Rods there with that pole time of the GT3s at 2:17.307. He'll be smiling all the way to the pit lane and back onto the grid. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes qualifying. What a qualifying session it is, and well, thankfully we can now walk you through through the grid to dissect exactly how they all line up for round number 8 of the championship. So as the drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for round number 8 of the UK Sim Racing Multiclass League Season 3 and sponsored by the Virtual Racing School of VRS. It is Patrik Thomsen who lines up on pole position overall in the GTP class for Williams Sim Racing Academy. He's joined on the front row and the gap between him in qualifying was almost half a second. It'll be Austin William Campbell for Effect Simulations Club Sport who starts second. Behind them, it'll be none other than Jon Williams for Effect Simulations who begins his day third ahead of Daryl Norket for Racing Forces, and those two separated by less than 400. Expect some fireworks between them when they do go green flag racing. Andreas Nordnoff for Olympus Esports has another good qualifying session. He starts 5th of the day for the Danish team, and as he gets ready to go in the number 20, well, the Dane will then be joined by Xander Hill for Tiki Sim Sport. He'll be starting at 6th for the Britain, and then we will have Nathan Foster on row number 4 starting 7th for Empire Motorsport ahead of Amit Rajic Ghosh, the privateer, in the all-red Ferrari who begins his day in 8th. Behind them, then it'll be the LMP2 field. Beginning 9th in this race will be James Ibram. That'll be overall, but on pole position for the LMP2 class for Effect Simulations Club Sport. He'll be joined on the front row of the LMP2 grid by Øystein Herfjord for Effect Simulations Carbon, and between the two of them, in the end, it was only 13 thousandths, and I think Herfjord will be gutted that he's missed out by such a small margin, knowing he's been working so hard week in, week out, and Ibram, meanwhile, absolutely loves the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, so I think his pride will be saved a little bit to have taken that LMP2 pole. However, regardless of what pride's on the line, behind them, making up the rest of the LMP2 field, we do have starting 3rd in LMP2 at length over on the grid, Pacework Esports, Jarrett Lee. Then it'll be Ryan Walker, who has his best qualifying performance of the season, starting 4th today in the class for Ultra 3M Esport, 12th in the overall grid, and behind the Scotsman will be 2 the Britons of Ben Cullen for Effect Simulations and DDK Racing Team's Tom Farr. Then completing the LMP2 qualifying order, it will be Simon Bamber for Effect Simulations Carbon and James Acklam, who starts 16th there, the privateer, in the number 77. Eric Rosef will then be your pole sitter for GT3 overall and in the pro class of WSR Esports as he looks to have another dominant day of racing. Alongside the Norwegian driver will be Jack Barker for Made for Racing, known as his golden opportunity to try and secure a run to a podium which could move him a bit more confidently in 2nd in the championship. Cy Anthony begins his day 3rd the GT3 to Dragon Rezio in the company of Kasper Brøckner for Old Dudes in Cars, who just knows all he needs to do today is get some points on the board beyond that podium and the GT3 Pro crown is his. Behind them on what is row at number 11, it's Sean Cranley Swash, who starts 21st for Antsy Sports, head of Darren Sharples for Old Dudes in Cars. Then you come to your GT3 and pole sitter, James Foster for DCW Racing, who took pole position in the class in the end by 21 thousandths over James Connolly with a late charging qualifying for UK Sim Racing Button. Then we John Davis for the Wrong Stuff ahead of Christian Maltrek, and behind them on row number 14, Rob Windsor for UK Sim Racing Irvine and Matt Edmondson for UK Sim Racing Button, with your top 30 completed by the returning driver of Richard Jones and Simon Hartley, and it'll be 30 drivers on this grid. The team DWR with SimCoach Setups driver starting last but not least on the field. Well, the field is set, everyone's absolutely ready to go, and as they all make the way around, we're not too far away from green flag racing. It's only a partial formation lap, and as we can see, the GTP field already making its way up towards Blanchimont corner, and as they do, well, Austin William Campbell and Patrik Thomsen will be the 2 big protagonists at the front of the field, but who will antagonise the other and who will come away victorious is the question. On paper at least, every race that Patrik Thomsen has started on pole position from, as the second half of the season he has taken victory. Austin William Campbell has not been able to make a dent in the charge of Patrik Thomsen, but could today be the day where things play out differently? Well, it's all that and more to find out over 60 minutes of racing, ladies and gentlemen, as our pole sitter and our GTPs make their way into the bus stop chicane and take us to the green for 60 minutes of racing here in round 8 of the championship. And it's go, go, go out of the bus stop chicane, and they roar away as 60 minutes of racing gets underway at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, roaring their way down in towards La Source, and Austin William Campbell and being called out slightly by the race start. Oh, goodness me, and that's already down Knocker into the barrier there before he's even able to make the opening corner. Where was that lock under brake and where was push? We're not quite sure, but there's also been some drama further back in the LMP2 class. We lost Jarrett Lee a lot further back, Ryan Walker as well. We see them in the rear of the picture with 2 headlights. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can, but there's been drama before they've even got racing effectively. And we can see Ryan Walker and Jarrett Lee now trying to make the way out. We've also had somebody go around in the GT3 category. I can't quite see who that is. Is that Matt Edmondson? Yes, it is. That's Edmondson who's had a spin. So already a dismal qualifying session has now turned into a disastrous race start. And Edmondson's got to do it all the way from the back of the field if he wants to try and keep James Foster away from that championship lead. Was the GT3s make the way out to La Source? John Davis has had a brilliant start. He's moving up forward, albeit he's got Christian Maltrek for close company as they head into Uruj and Radion for the first time asking. Rob Windsor separated by what is Christian Maltrek versus John Davis. So the two GT3Ms have the Pro for company as they head onto the Camel Straight. But riding the one down here, well, right now, is there going to be any potential move? And when to think about it, well, I think he could be quite eager to pass Maltre, but it's easier said than done. Is that going to be 3 wide in the rear of the picture? Well, it is indeed, and that is going to be 2 Mustangs trying to fend off the Charger, the Dragon Razio Porsche, but going straight on Sean Cranny Swash there, who decides to take to the escape path, and as he does, oh, that gets very, very tight. James Foster, I think, sensibly backs out, but he's got James Conley for close company, and Conley's mission now will be to get ahead of Foster and slow him down as much as possible if he wants to help out his teammate. All right, the way down to Ravage, Foster dives up the inside immediately there. Well, Conley, I should say, dives up the inside of Foster immediately. The two Jameses, let's get them in the right order, and as they come for expand, well, that's going to be Conley up into the lead of GT3 Ams. I think Foster will be taking his time with this one, but he'll be cognizant of the fact that right now he will need to get back ahead of the fellow McLaren driver sooner rather than later, because Conley's directive will be, if he can't see Edmondson coming up, he'll need to take that victory and run it off into distance. But from them, let's come over to the not the LMPs, I should say the GTPs, as we see where's Austin William Campbell diving up the inside of Underhill, misses breaking point entirely, goes straight on into the runoff area, and for Austin William Campbell, it's a race start that's going backwards, not forwards, as quickly as he's completed 1 lap, and it's a frustrating start at that. But that means Andreas Nordenhoff is released now into the battle versus Underhill. In towards turn 1 they go, and Nordenhoff up the inside here under braking, and Hill on the outside there, well, has to give the space, but it's going to be a drag race now all the way onto the Camel Straight, because of course you don't want to necessarily be leading out of the source. You've got a long run to go, and in these machines it's practically flat out all the way through. As we see Nathan Voss there get close, we ride on board with your 5th place GTP drivers. He makes his way up the hill, and with the double draft here, you'll now start to see as he goes into top gear, 7th gear there in the Porsche 963. Well, the draft will just see him get closer and closer as he brings Amrit Rajic Ghosh and Austin William Campbell up behind him as well. Foster looks to the inside here, they go onto the brakes, and as he does, well, in the end, not quite enough on the brakes versus Hill. He was able to get the car stopped a little bit later by comparison, and Foster now does have Austin William Campbell looking right behind us. You can see that in the rear view mirror just how close he is, but let's articulate that with some better camera footage. And as they come down towards Ravage, well, there's Austin William Campbell. He's close, he can't make the move at the moment, but he's very eager to try and make his way back through this field, but it's much easier said than done as they head in towards turn number 8, but through X corner and down towards Poole they go, and as they do, with this GTP field right now absolutely cram-packed together, and you can see Austin William Campbell again taking a sneak peek to the inside into Poole and just trying to get into Foster's head, but Foster right now looking forward, not backwards, albeit runs a bit wide out of Poole corner, and AWC only needs 1 chance to take victory there in terms of that little battle, and does exactly that as Austin William Campbell moves up into 5th place now, and the recovery drive begins very rapidly indeed for the Effect Simulations drives. He roars his way out of the left-hander of the Vantage Chicane, and now down into Stavlo 1. But from them, let's come back to the LMP2s, and well, here's 2 drivers who had an absolute nightmare start to their races, and we're going to find out what happened to them very shortly, and that's Ryan Walker and Jarrett Lee, and Lee on the back of Walker now as they fight over 7th place in LMP2, and I think they'll try and work together mutually at the moment, depending on what damage is on the car and what the state of the tyres is. And eventually they will then potentially start to look at passing each other. If not, if they can get closer to the rest of the LMP2 field, which is 5 seconds up the road, then they'll be thinking about that picture of, okay, now let's start to make it a little bit close to them, and then we can start fighting over 6th place once more. But for them, it's definitely been a frustrating start to the race as Lee close, but not close enough here to think about a move, or is he? We ride on board here with the Paceworks Esports driver who started 3rd place in class, but very quickly has ended up in last place in class. Looking to the inside there for Blanchimont. Walker just open up the corner a bit more, and I think Lee here of 2 minds, albeit I think he's going to send the signal as Walker steps aside there, and Ryan Walker, I think in the end, doesn't want to fight with Lee. He'd rather work with his fellow racer in order to move further up the order. Smart driving from the pair of them. They swap places, and on to another lap they go. But as they come on down on towards La Source corner, well, we do look to James Connors. We see a run wide there in the rear of your picture, I believe. That was one of the McLarens. I think that was the McLaren of Rob Windsor taking a bit of an excursion to the gravel trap, but we have had a change of position. That's Christian Maltrek getting ahead of James Conley, and now interestingly, we do have the GT3 Pros entirely ahead of the GT3 AMs, so that field has separated out at this point, albeit we can see Conley trying to get back ahead of Maltrek. They're fighting over overall position here. Side by side they go into the bus stop chicane, side by side they exit the chicane, as the Porsche and the McLaren both have great low speed traction, but the Porsche will get the better run off the corner with the wider width on exit. Now heading down towards the Source, well, Maltrek will have the inside there in the lime green machine, albeit Conley in the white and black McLaren, where he's going to try and battle it all the way around the outside. They're still too wide here as they come out to La Source corner. Neither driver wants to back off of the other and roaring the way up towards now Uruj and Radion. Well, at this point, surely if you're Connolly, you've got to be thinking about backing out. He does exactly that as they head upwards then. We look back from the rear of Connolly's car, but perhaps more important is the Sparks Fly. Let's look into the front of it. And thankfully, we do have the onboard camera. You can see how close he's going to get in the long charge as they make the way down the Campbell Straight. And as they do, well, here he goes and in the tow, in top gear. Maltrek goes defensive to the inside. Connolly's going to look around the outside here onto the brakes. It'll be a battle, but who's going to win that battle is the question. We know the Porsche is strong on the brakes, but then Connolly sweeps around the outside, gets it stopped just in time. Lovely move there, and that is going to enable potentially Connolly to break away if Maltrek doesn't come back in down to Ravage. And coming on down the hill, it's a great battle, but look, James Foster behind with John Davis looking around the outside there. In fact, Foster trying to come back through. Davis had made the move on him. Sideways car, and is that Richard Jones? No, it's not. Richard Jones goes wide there to avoid contact with the car. That was Rob Windsor getting it very wrong, and that brings Matt Edmondson a little bit closer into the fold. So Edmondson surely's got to take some hope from this, knowing he is getting a bit closer to the GT3 Ampac, and the GT3 Ampac is naturally being forced backwards towards him because of the Connolly Maltrek battle. So things are working out for Edmondson, but he's still got to pass everyone. He's got to pass 6 GT3 Ams on the road, and one of those is James Foster running second after getting back ahead of John Davis, who had inched ahead, and we'll get a replay of how that happened shortly. But meanwhile, we come back to the GTPs. They make the one to the Campbell Straight. Our leader's already beyond the Campbell Straight and into Legom, but as they come down, well, this is Foster versus Gauche. Gauche looking to the inside there in the red Ferrari as he makes one down there on the left-hand side of the screen. On the brakes they'll go, and Gauche in does get ahead. Lovely move there from the number 17 driver and making his way back and through, and definitely has developed a lot over the course of this season. It's so great to see the Indian driver moving it forward from round to round and week to week and getting stuck into the battling. I think even Foster will have a bit of respect and admiration for the move made by the Ferrari driver on his Porsche. But then coming to the LMP2 as well, here comes James Acklam, and well, one thing we can say about Acklam is there's always fireworks when he goes racing, normally the good kind of fireworks. He comes on down towards Legom, and as he does so, Simon Bamber there, very pronounced, tucking back into the toe, not wanting to fight it too hard, and Acklam sweeping on through for 5th place in the LMP2 class, as he then goes chasing after Tom Farr, one of his big rivals from Road Atlanta and previous rounds before that. But we can see there a little bit of run wide coming out into the gravel, and here comes Bamble looking up the inside, not quite enough in, and Bamble has to stay where he is for the time being. But as they come on down in towards Ix, well, let's take a look back at some of the incidents from the start of the race, and we begin with what happened to Darryl Norquette. Now, this was right at the beginning, in towards La Source, when the GTPs went green, but what exactly happened to Darryl Norquette is the question. I think he was by himself, under braking, goes on the brakes, and the car snaps loose down the rear, cold brakes, and the rear right brake just unlocking itself before everything else. Meanwhile, we take a look to the LMP2 class, and this was the Ryan Walker with Jarrett Lee incident that we saw at the start of the race, and I believe Jarrett Lee just in front, Walker close behind. Walker has a bit of a lock-up, so he goes on strong, a little bit of tap there to Lee. Walker goes around of his own volition, and Lee does the same there, so both completely separate from each other, but both on cold tyres and cold brakes, going for the bus stop chicane, and not being timid enough with the car, but instead being a bit ferocious, and that's what sends them both around. And then subsequently, what happened to Matt Edmondson at the bus stop chicane? This was when the GT3 started racing. Well, he looked around the outside, and well, a lovely move there initially, but what goes wrong here as he goes into the second part of the chicane? Does he overturn the car? The answer is yes, he does. The cold tyres, he tries to light them up on corner exit, and the car says no, and well, that's the way it was going to go. But from them, well, we did subsequently have on lap number 3 this instant for Rob Windsor, lap number 3 of the GT3 AM race, I should say. And as they made the way down here, this was into Ravage corner. Jones up the inside. Was there a tap there? There might have been a bit of a tap. Jones decides to go straight on there in order to respect causing a further instant. But I wonder if there was a little bit of tap. Can we get another angle of that? I don't think we can. But Jones in tucking back in. But meanwhile, in all of that, what exactly happened between John Davis and James Foster is a question that some of you might be asking. And this was on lap number 2, where we did see the two of them battling quite hard, and it was down the Campbell Straight, and as they made their way into the braking zone, it was Foster versus Davis. Davis looking around the outside, too wide they went into Legom, and too wide they will merge out of it. But when exactly did that battle end is the question. Well, of course, with the Christian Maltrek Connolly battle, and Foster in the end mounting the curb in there at turn number 7, and that's what enabled John Davis to get ahead. And a lap later, we did see Davis being passed by Foster, who tucks back up the inside into Ravage. So there's some updates on all the big battles and moments in the opening few laps of the race, and we've still got plenty of time left. We've got 50 minutes of racing to go, and with 50 minutes still on the clock, let's come back to your live pictures, and let's talk a little bit more about those GTPs at the front of the field. Because Patrik Thomsen has already gapped the field by 11 seconds, but right now the fight for second is really equivalently for them a battle for victory if you exclude Thomsen from the results. Not that we're going to do that, but the point being that right now that's what it will feel like to these guys, with Thomsen disappearing off into the distance. And as we can see, Williams under pressure from Nordenov, who looks the inside, looking one way, and Nordenov absolutely goes all in under brake in there, but Williams says, okay, whatever you can do, I can do it too. And what I did for them, we're going to make it through. Well, Nordenov in the end decides to take a little bit of an excursion there to give Williams the space to breathe. I think Nordenov realising just how much Williams wants to place, and here comes Austin William Campbell, looking around the outside as they make the way into La Source. Well, William Campbell is going to be brave. Nordenov sees it coming, however, gives him the space to operate, but brilliant awareness from all three drivers, and while the effect simulation drivers, they're being very eager to make that place. And we can understand, because for Austin William Campbell, he needs to try and get back into the second place at minimum and then go chasing after Patrik Thomsen if he's got the pace in the car in order to do so after what was a dismal start to his race. But a huge lockup right at the beginning caused him to fall out of position. But as they roar the way on down, well, Williams, I don't think, will fight this one too hard initially as they come down into Lake Arm, and you can see there the switch of positions. And William Campbell now up into second, and I think being essentially told by Williams, indeed the entire crew, right, Austin, you've got to go now. But meanwhile, Andres Nordenov says, well, is it my turn to go? But then puts two wheels up onto the gravel coming out of turn at number 6, and Williams is able to scoop his way back around the outside. But to be fair, Andres Nordenov always the opportunist, and that opportunity came, but he didn't quite seize it the way he wanted it to. But roaring on through there, and Williams right now still under pressure here as they make the way through the left-hander. And by looks of things, unless I'm mistaken, is Williams missing a rear wing on that Cadillac? It looks as though the wing's fallen off the car. Well, if so, I haven't quite seen where that wing's gone, but it has fallen off quite recently because it was there only moments ago. And well, as he makes his way down through Pullen Corner, Nordenov right now very close. He's got to look for a move here on the outside. That's going to be into the Fender chicane. Onto the brakes they'll go. Too wide they enter. And with Nordenov, does he get stopped in time? Yes, he does. And Andreas Nordenov there with a very brave move. But sometimes being brave and bold is what you got to do. And now here comes Foster. And it looks as though now the rot is beginning in terms of the places dropping up for Williams as Foster goes around the outside in Stavlo 1. Here comes Amit Rajic, goes up the inside of Stavlo 2, and when the end can't quite get it done, but Williams has got no downforce over the rear of that Cadillac. You can see, look at the exit speeds out the corner. That Cadillac, there's no confidence in getting the power down, so Ghost will eventually get alongside now, but will he be able to make his way all the way around the outside into Blanchimont? And the answer will be yes, he will, as Zander Hill also queues up now. Williams runs out a little bit wide. Zander Hill has to take a bit of an excursion out to the wide, and onto the brakes he goes now into the bus stop chicane, and Hill, well, absolutely wanting to come on through, but being held at this time as Andreas Nordenov is into the pit lane, and I believe Jon Williams is as well. Well, both of them into the pits. I wonder if Nordenov's got some damage that we don't know about, but from them, well, plenty of excitement going on in the GTP class. And now we do have Øystein Herfjord here as he makes his way after James Ibram. And well, these two are very close together and really running away at the front of the LMP2 field. But the two championship contenders staying close, keeping each other honest. And we'll wait to see what they're going to do here as the distance goes on. And Herfjord does have himself in quite a nice position at the moment, which is if he's not having to run himself 100% in order to stay directly behind Ibram, he might be able to do a little bit of fuel saving here as he comes into the heavy braking zones. He can just lift off the throttle for the best part of what will be 50 meters before his normal braking point, and by doing so he can save tiny little sips of fuel which add up over time and can be worth the best part of 2 to 4 seconds when he eventually does have to make the pit stop. And those 2 to 4 seconds can be the difference between coming out ahead of your rival from the pit versus being stuck behind them. As we do say hello in the YouTube chat there, so for Alex Brown and also Satinder Deenser, and I do believe that both unavailable to make tonight's race, but very happy to have you both tuning in. I hope you're both doing well, and no worries, Alex. Completely understand if you've got an early morning with regards to work. Sometimes work gets in the way, but no, we do miss seeing you on the grid, and we hope you're back for round number 9 at the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle, because it wouldn't quite be a GT3 AM class if we haven't got you on the grid then. It's been great to see how far you've come over the course of the season in your first sim racing league, if my memory serves me correctly. But coming from a driver who's not on the grid to a GT3 AM who is on the grid and getting absolutely stuck into the fight, well, that is Simon Hartley fighting with Richard Jones, and Jones there in the slow and steady racing Acura. Well, in the absence of Alex Brown, he'll be representing the team solo today, and I believe Hartley there trying to fend off the charge from Jones, is trying to make his way through. And what a story of two halves it has been this season for Richard Jones. In the first half of the season, bit of misfortune at Fuji definitely cost him what could have been a huge run in the championship, and in the second half of the season not quite been at the front of the class, and indeed it has given the way to the story of the Foster-Edmondson battle. And speaking of Matt Edmondson, well, here he is very close to the back of the Acura of Jones, as we do have Nathan Foster's GTP trying to come on through. And well, if we jump on board with Matt Edmondson looking down over the front of the car, his mindset right now will be just to let that GTP go and then tuck back immediately into the draft here of Jones as they head into turn 1. Edmondson very late on the brakes there. You can see the confidence under braking another 176 driver has in that McLaren compared to the Acura Jones, in the fact he just leans so heavily on the brakes. And there goes Amit Rajic, goes cutting his way through. And it looks as though the GTP traffic will carve its way through the GT3 AMs just in time. Oh my good lord, as that Xander Hill comes out stage left and gives a stage fright there as he comes on through, but just times that to perfection. And Edmondson not coming across at the time we expect, and that explains why. Well, it will mean that his gap to Jones will open up to the best part of 0.6 of a second, as Jones will have a full slipstream effect over the back of Hartley, and he's going to look for the move there under braking. They're going to go too wide in. Jones goes straight on under braking. Here comes Edmondson. He's going to make it 3 wide as they come through, but backs out in the end, trying to go around the outside to the inside. I think Edmondson playing the smart move there, trying to play it cautious, but he does get the place of a side off of Windsor, and as they make the way down to the braking zone onto turn number 8, well, right now Edmondson here, I think he'll be breathing a big sigh of relief in the fact that things have worked out the way they have. And in fact, whilst all that's going on, I thought Cy Hartley had been passed back there. He had. Jones and Hartley have swapped the places back effectively after the excursion off, so Richard Jones, despite getting it wrong, being a gentleman and giving the place back to Simon Hartley, all in the space of Matt Edmondson trying to negotiate his way on through. Well, Richard Jones definitely the gentleman racer, and Rob Windsor's caught up to the back of this right now as they make the way down through Pearl Corner, and Windsor's going to be tucked in behind Edmondson. I think he's going to be under orders. Do not pass unless you're told to. But now Simon Hartley goes a bit deep there into the Fandry chicane. Jones looking one way, then the other. Well, Hartley having to outbrake himself each and every corner in order to try and keep Jones behind, and Jones is trying to send it each and every corner. And in the battle of the man who's licking the stamps versus the man who's due to receive the letters, well, right now both of them they're absolutely egging each other on, and we love to see it as they roll the way out of Stavlo 2 and now all the way on to the run towards Blanchimont, also known as the run through curve to Paul Ferrier, as the drivers head on towards the fast left-hander. Well, this GT3 AM pack is 6.5 seconds off of the top 3, with John Davis being your third place man in GT3 AM. He's a long way away, and this fighting is only going to force Edmondson further and further back, and where things were to finish as they currently stand, it would be advantage Foster into the championship finale as Jones again looks around the outside, and you can see Hartley simply goes, okay, if you want to play this way, I'll just drag the car out the corners and I'll make us all lose apex speed here. And well, he's absolutely allowed to do that, and Jones right now has got to be inventive. You see Hartley goes to the racing line, brings it all the way over. Here comes the GTP of Andreas Nordenov there, which stops everyone looking to that inside line, and now getting very close is Richard Jones. He rolls his way through, but Jones then runs deep at the corner. That is going to release Matt Edmondson up the inside. Edmondson's there, but can he find a way in? The answer is no, he can't. In fact, that's Rob Windsor getting on through there. Apologies, and well, I think Jones missed his braking point, and that's going to be too wide between Jones and Windsor as they head up the hill, but Windsor decides to back off. Jones, meanwhile, absolutely committed to the bit, so Edmondson has snuck his way through. We briefly lost him into the Infernal Ether, and he made his way on back, but they roar the way down the straight. Well, Matt Edmondson now will be all the way over the back of Simon Hartley as they head towards Acom. Onto the brakes they go, and as they do, well, Hartley in the number 16 still not giving in here, and absolutely digging in the trenches here as he roars his way on through and coming out to the right hand and onwards towards turn number 8. Well, Hartley right now, he's going to make everyone behind him absolutely have to pay the price here to come past into 4th place, and that price is one that Matt Edmondson is going to have to pay gladly if he wants to try and move forward, or he's going to have to work some magic on strategy. From them, let's come into the LMP2 class meanwhile, and this is Jarrett Lee versus Simon Bamber, or what you should say is Jarrett Lee scooping his way on past there on the slipstream, and Bamber tucking into the toe once again, and Simon Bamber seeing Lee coming and deciding, I'm not going to fight this, I'd rather work together with this driver, much like we saw a little bit earlier on. Bamber definitely playing the long-term game here rather than fighting for short-term gains and long-term losses. But as he comes down in towards Rivage Corner, let's wait and see how that strategy plays out over the distance. We've still got a long distance to go here, and we're speaking of distances, well, right now these two Ford Mustangs are very close in terms of their racing distance. Sean Cranny-Swash and Kasper Brøckner, and well, it was Kasper Brøckner who qualified behind Sean Cranny-Swash. They have had a place swap quite recently, if my memory serves me correctly. We'll see if we can find out exactly how they have swapped places in due course as they head up into the braking zone here for turn number 18 and 19, going on through the bus stop chicane. Well, these two making their way right into left. One other noticeable admission, in fact, that has occurred in the GT3 Pro class is that we have had Jack Barker fall down the order by a long margin. In fact, I'm hearing in my ear he's had a big excursion which dropped him all the way down from a second place running position in GT3 Pro and GT3 overall, so we're going to get a replay of that very shortly. As Andreas Nordenov there, well, he sticks his nose in. I don't think Granny Swash is going to be too happy to see that GTP do that, and had to open up the steering wheel at the very last moment. I think there might have been a bit of rub between them, and that's going to drop Granny Swash off the back of Brøckner, and that will bring Cy Anthony some confidence here as they make the way up the hill and in towards the Kemmel Straight. As they head over the rise there, Cy Anthony right now absolutely attacking as he maxes out 5th gear as much as possible, holding the revs practically to the red line. You can see that on the dashboard, the flashing blue light, which is practically screaming to the driver, please shift now in simple terms. Was he comes in towards the braking zone here for Lecon once again, down 4 gears. It'll be down to second gear as he gets a face full of gravel and dust kicked up by Sean Cranny-Swash's Mustang as they roar the way through the right-hander at turn number 7. Well, Anthony giving chase. He didn't quite have the pace in qualifying, but right now he's definitely having the race pace and feeling quite itchy with the trigger fingers on those shifters. He wants to go hunting for that podium and get himself into that hunt for second place in the championship once again. But roaring his way on round. Well, from then we need to take a look back at what happened to Jack Barker. This was on lap number 5. Here's the replay, ladies and gentlemen, and Barker making his way through the town of Blanchemont. Oh, goodness me. The car letting go there. And in the end, I think Kasper Brøckner being too close in order to take avoided action. I think helping Barker on his way. Can we get another replay of that potentially from the onboard of Kasper Brøckner's car? I think we can. And here we go then. What happened? Oh my good lord, and in fact that's terrifying for Kasper Brøckner and Jack Barker. Barker just having the car let go on him there with cool track temperatures in the rear of that Acura, centre of mass behind the driver, and then Brøckner having nowhere to go, and in the end essentially having to escort Barker to the barrier. And well, I don't think either driver is going to be very happy how the cars feel after that one, but that explains what happened to Jack Barker, who was under some pressure in running in second place in GT3 Pro, and in the end he made his way on around, and then he was helped further around by a Mustang that just could not take evasive action in time. You can understand from both drivers' perspective. I think they'll look back at that one after the race and go, you know what, it happened, we have to move on from it. But speaking of moving on from things, well, whilst all that was happening, we've also had a change in the battle for second place in LMP2, because here's James Ibram, still your leader. That hasn't changed, but notice the absence of another LMP2 that was running right on his back, and that's Øystein Herfjord. Well, he's dropped the best part of 1.5 seconds back as Ibram now finds himself coming up to the GT3 AM pack, and this is going to be a very painful pack to run along as he makes his way down in towards the bus stop chicane, and this is going to suddenly cause all the time he's gained on Herfjord for whatever means we're not quite sure of the understanding, although we have heard that Herfjord's had a bit of an off-track moment which would explain it. Well, suddenly all that gap will be slashed back down, and Øystein Herfjord here will be hoping that he can pick his way past the LMP2s at a much more provident time, and it will be in the run from La Source all the way to Lecom. That's where he'll ideally get them, where he can use the downforce and the speed of the LMP2 machine in order to just gradually make his way on through. But as he does, when we look back to Tom Farr, who's chasing after Ben Cullen for the final podium spot in the LMP2 class. We haven't really talked about Farr so far today, but DDK Racing Team driver enjoying a good run as he chases after that podium. As he powers his way along close, but not quite close enough to look for a move here as we ride on board, looking down over the nose of the 171, albeit this is going to be a very quick run out of Origen Radion, and onwards he'll go then onto the Kemmel Straight. 3.5 tenths as they begin the run down the straight, but this will be an indicator as well by how much rear wing each driver is running. In fact, if he doesn't gain enough to make a move here, he might be running a bit more rear wing compared to his rival. Also keep in mind, these LMP2 machines, they do max out quite quickly in terms of their top gear. They don't have that higher top speed. In fact, very close to GT3 top speeds if my memory serves me correctly. They only got a couple mile an hour more, which means that really you've got to use that downforce to get the best possible run, and when you do max out, you don't make much more progress after that. But coming down into a large corner, or far close, but not really close enough to attack at the moment, keeping Cullen very honest, and Ben Cullen will know one small mistake and it could all end up going the wrong way, as we do see a bit of gravel being kicked up into the air there, and I believe that might be some gravel from the car of Øystein Herfjord just a little bit further up the road. In fact, no, that was one of our GT3 AMs, and I believe it was the 6th place GT3 AM of what is Simon Hartley, who had a brief excursion onto the dust. Hartley has fallen down to that position, mind you, after battling with Richard Jones. And well, look at Cullen picking on the pack of the GT3s at probably the worst possible time as Farr takes a little look. Oh, goodness me, that is very close. And I think there it was going to be a situation whereby Farr took a gamble. Well, the gamble paid off, but in other circumstances it wouldn't have, as Rob Windsor almost ended up in a bit of a contact with Farr's car as they come out of Stavlo 2. Well, look how close Farr is now. He's practically glued to the back of Cullen. He's had to take a very short line out of Stavlo 2 due to Si Hartley being there. Will they make the way onwards towards Blanchemont corner? Farr decides, okay, I'm not going to go for it here. There's no point going into Blanchemont. That would be absolute death to our race. But what can work out here is if you can get the traffic played absolutely right as the Sparks 5 in the undertrack of Cullen's car, we might be able to look and move here onto the next lap as they find themselves behind the Jones-Edmondson battle, as Matt Edmondson at 4th place in GT3 AM continues to try and push onwards. James Acklam is into the pit lane. I believe that will be his one and only stop for today that he's trying to take at the moment to dodge coming up into this traffic. So Acklam trying to be smart with things here, and he could suddenly find himself right back into this pack later on. As they roar the way out, well, Richard Jones there showing great awareness, as does Edmondson. You can see Jones immediately trying to tuck into the toe of Tom Farr's car in order to be able to gain a little bit more speed advantage versus Edmondson. But into the complex of Origen Radion they go, far around the outside of Edmondson there, using all the downforce of LMP2 and also a lot of courage to do so. And well, today he definitely put on the bravery pants as they make the way down the Kemmel Straight. And Jones, meanwhile, now on the back of Edmondson, had a blighted line coming up the hill. Well, here comes Jones roaring his way up the inside. Can he get this done under braking? before we have what is Jarrett Lee coming up behind them. That's a very quick coming Jarrett Lee. Well, 2 wide they go into Lake On. It's going to be a little bit squeeze. Carlett's got on the rear, much like what happened to Barker at Blancham on a few laps ago. And Jones in with a small tap to Edmondson. It just helps him straight out, but Edmondson gets back ahead there. So Jones throwing everything at this, but it's not enough right now. And those Acuras are not looking happy out there today. The Acura's normally been one of the most stable cars on the circuit that we've been to over the course of this season, but right now the Acuras, for whatever reason, those rear ends on those cars are just sliding all over the place. Perhaps it's a low track temperature, or perhaps it's another reason in terms of how the drivers have set them up. But that's now the second of our 2 Acuras here on the grid that we have seen have a very big sideways moment, even at medium to low speed, and therefore it definitely looks so the Acura right now, not the car, excuse me, you want to be in here at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. But right his way around, they got it together, and just in time, as we can see there, a quick ditch to the inside from our LMP2 drivers. That is the number, I believe. It's one of, I think that is the car of Ben Cullen making its way on through there, or at least by the effect simulations machines, as we try to discern who it is, but they were able to survive all of that. And as they make the way onwards, well, now no real change at the moment. Speaking of changes, however, oh my good lord! That's Sean Cranny swash up into the end, practically over the catch fence. What on earth has happened to him? That's at Blanchimont corner. I get the feeling that car has gone around and then some. We'll come to a replay of that very shortly, as Blanchimont has claimed another car. It claimed Barker earlier on, and now we do have coming from the scene of the incident, albeit it's been cleared. Edmondson versus Jones again. Edmondson under a lot of pressure as Richard Jones has decided to throw all the championship scripts in the bin and say, you know what, I'm going for it today. And whether Edmondson's a championship contender or not, I do not care. And well, right now Jones has his own championship to play out here in terms of when to finish inside the top 5, if not the top 3 at the end of the season. And he's looking left, he's looking right, he's looking down the centre of the road, onto the brakes he goes, and as he does so, Edmondson again just out braking that Acura. But right now Edmondson's race, after the spin right at the start, well, right now those tyres and those front brakes in particular are going to be scorching hot in that McLaren, and Jones is there with him. As you can see, Ryan Walker decided to be patient here and just let the GT3s take their natural line up the hill, because he'll get them over the rise. It'll cost him some time, but I think Walker playing the game, which is safety, is the better option rather than take the risk. But as they make the way down, well, Jones will pull to the inside. Edmondson meanwhile puts himself on the racing line on the outside. Walker sipes his way between the 2 of them into the braking zone. They go again. Jones this time, as he close up, he's going to try it, but Edmondson comes across there as late as he possibly can, taking a natural racing line, and Jones has made to wait his turn. But we've been waiting to find out what happened to Sean Cranny swash, and well, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer, because here comes Jones again. A better run out of turn number 7. Down to Ravage they go, onto the brakes, but he just doesn't have enough there, does Jones. He needs about 2 more metres of distance on Edmondson, and he might be able to go for under braking. The brakes on that McLaren are incredible versus the Acura, and as they make the way through the left-hander, well, I believe we'll see Edmondson rematerialise from the ether very shortly, unless I'm mistaken. I think, yep, there you will see him. He's rematerialised, and Edmondson right now under so much pressure as he roars his way through Pearl corner, and it's pressure. I don't know how long he's going to be able to hold on for, but if he can hold on to it, and well, he's going to feel as though this 4th place today has been the hardest 4th place he's probably ever earned in his sim racing career. But as they make the way on through the chicane, well, we need to come back to what happened to Sean Cranny swash, and here's the replay, ladies and gentlemen. We've been holding on to it for some time. This is into Blanchimont, goes a little bit to the grass initially there, runs out wide, turns in, does the rear let go. Well, the only thing that's noticeable there is he does, oh goodness me, the car snaps one way, and gets catapulted off of the barrier there and onto the other side of the circuit, over the track. And for Sean Cranny swash, that looked like a tiny tap of the apex curve. Let's ride on board and just listen. A tiny tap of the apex curve there causes the car to scoop out wide, and well, after that, well, we do end up going through a bit of motion sickness there. Do apologise if you are a bit of a nervous disposition, but thankfully that all comes to an end, and we got to feel for Sean Cranny swash behind the wheel of the car. But just a small tap to the apex curve, and as he made his way over it, caused the car to become unsettled, went to the exit curb, and as soon as he mounted it, the suspension of the car just jolting, and that's what caused it to cut loose. And for Sean Cranny swash, what was looking to be a run to a podium, that is in the pit. The car's out, and I believe he's out the car. All's okay, however, but that car is not going anywhere else today, and that'll be our first GT3 Pro retirement we have seen here at Spa-Francorchamps. But as the drivers make the way on around, we'll charge the way up the hill, and I can see the words there from Sean Cranny swash in the YouTube chat saying, I thought I was going to hit the car on the inside, and what an absolute nightmare moment, I can tell you for that, Sean. But thankfully it's in the simulator, not in reality, because otherwise I think you'd be shaken, stirred and everything in between, particularly in what has been a very dark weekend for motorsport as well, for anyone's been following the news, albeit I'm not going to go too much into it, but we have unfortunately had a very dark day in motorsport over the course of this weekend, and a reminder of just how dangerous motorsport is, whether simulated or in real life. But coming back to the realities of the racing here, and as we do, well, here's our race leader of Patrik Thomsen and the Ferrari 499 as he slides his way out of its corner, and as he does, going around Davies in towards Pullen Curve. Well, as he does right now, Patrik Thomsen leading by 11 seconds. But the thing that's going on here as well is the fact we did say earlier on that once Austin William Campbell had been released back into second place, would he be able to charge onwards? And well, the answer is he is matching Thomsen's times left, right and centre. And in fact, both of them equal, and that gap has stabilised between 10 to 11 seconds. The traffic that they come against, of course, causing that gap to open up a little bit and then collapse back together. But the average is Austin William Campbell is matching Thomsen for time, but with a 10-second gap. The problem is, with that gap existing, he's not close enough to go battling, and he wants to get closer, so he's got to try and work something out on the strategy or hope that Thomsen finds some traffic, which really costs him time. As that St. Anthony, by the way, has had it go wrong. That's at Blanchimont corner as well. And, well, as they roll the way on in, Thomsen makes his way past the scene of the instant, as does Ryan Walker coming through. And St. Anthony ducks into the pit lane here in a wounded Porsche. It's crumpled on the front. Thankfully, he's got a fast repair he can use in order to repair the damage quickly rather than slowly. And as they make the way down, Christian Maltret will pick up a place there. Maltret has been in the wars with the GT3 Amstel. He hasn't really had to fight the GT3 Pro so much, but he's picking up the places one by one as a result of everybody else seemingly losing it to Blanchimont corner, and to a point there which Sean Koenigsbosch is raised in the YouTube chat, and now I understand. My brain's decided to process it at long last when he was saying about if I was going to hit the car on the inside. There was, of course, some of you may have noticed, ladies and gentlemen, the Effect Simulations LMP2. Couldn't quite discern who it was, and we did see there the two exchange the tarmac, and I think that's what Sean Koenigsbosch is referring to, about thinking about hitting the car on the inside, and when then the car being pulled to the right as it came loose in order to try and avoid that contact. And we're very unfortunate there for Sean, as we do come back to our LMP2 driver Ben Cullen here as he makes his way around circuit. We'll very shortly get a replay of what happened to St. Anthony, and I suspect it may be a similar situation, the car cutting loose through Blanchimont corner, but if it's a mid-engine rear-wheel drive or rear-engine rear-wheel drive drivetrain machine, you do see that quite often. But right now, it does seem as though Blanchimont proving to be a thorn in anybody's side as they make the way through there. But speaking of St. Anthony, as he makes his way out of the pit lane, indeed back onto the Kemmel Straight. Well, that's Christian Maltret right in front. They're fighting over full place in GT3 Pro after taking their mandated pit stop, and it's going to be Anthony around the outside here, and Maltret under braking, and as they do, right into left. Well, Anthony they're sweeping his way around. I don't think Christian Maltret having really a response at the moment, and not to be rude about number 4 driver, I just don't think he has an answer to the pace of many of his pro peers at the moment. He's thinking about a return move into Rivage corner, but in the end too far back, and decides just to play it calm, cool and collected, and tuck in behind the Welshman as they make the way on through Virage and into X-Bend. But as they do, and we still got over half the race distance remaining, and we do have the best part of 28 minutes plus the final lap. Well, we need to take a look back at what happened to St. Anthony very shortly, as that is going to be a fast charging Austin William Campbell up the inside there of the GT3 pair as he served his pit stops. Now he's trying to pick his way through, and he's one of a limited number of front runners in the GTP class who have already made their pit stops. The top 3 in GTP of Thomsen, Foster and Hill have yet to take their one pit stop, whereas the rest of the GTP class have, and that goes to show William Campbell throwing everything at this, including an undercut strategy in order to try and find a way to get back. But as we see Maltrek there taking another little look up the inside into Stavelo 1 versus Anthony. Well, Anthony right now under a bit of mental pressure, but it looks as though as they roll the way out of Stavelo 2, he might be able to just unwind and release that pressure a little bit, as the toe will be strong but not strong enough to let Maltrek get close. And it gives us a perfect opportunity to take a look back at what happened to the Welshman only moments ago at this very corner he's coming up to. Now this was into Blanchimont back on lap number 13 for the GT3s, and well, they're tucking to the inside line with the LMP2 coming through, and that change of line so late in the day was what caused the car to become loose, unsettled, and it sent it round into the barrier. A 360 pirouette, to be fair, so he bounced off of the barrier. Thankfully, he was able to get to the pit lane, but that explains what happened to St. Anthony. Just a little bit of nerves there with the LMP2 coming up behind, and then in changing his line, it upset the car, and that is all how it all worked out for him. But we return to your live picture, and the number 27 still trying to keep Maltrek behind as James Connolly leaves the pit lane. Now, Connolly was leading in the GT3 AM class. He's tucked in behind St. Anthony as a result of this, and well, we are expecting more pit stops to come. But with that, well, this could be a surprise and not a welcome one to be certain for James Connolly, because right now he will find himself in a three-way GT3 battle with two pros, and well, if he can't find his way to clear them and they're holding up on pace, Could we suddenly see James Foster or even Simon Hartley make the way ahead? We'll have to wait and see. Keep in mind that Foster does have an 18-second gap over Hartley, so really it's for Foster to try and jump ahead of Connolly through the pit stops. Foster's still out there. You can see Connolly right now really the meat in the sandwich of the GT3 Pros, and as he roars his way on out, we ride on board here, right on board the dashboard of the number 4 Porsche 992. The priority of Maltrek making his way close in behind as Connolly there has a little bit of wobble going through a large corner, hard on the brakes, and not feeling comfortable with the car, the ABS triggering, and as a result the car wanting to understand what happens when you have that situation when you go hard on the brakes and the ABS is triggered, is essentially the anti-lock braking system says, okay, right, we've got to let the brakes go at a certain time to prevent them locking, that the car will naturally understeer more into the braking zone, and when the ABS does untrigger itself, or it unlocks itself, you suddenly get that little wobble motion as you try to turn through the corner, because suddenly you get the full ability of the car again, and that is what Connolly was battling with there. The ABS went on and will made him go deep into the corner, and it's enabled Anthony to break away a little bit, and Christian Maltrek all over the back of him here trying to take little nibbles up the inside into these low speed corners. So Connolly right now being made to work hard, and it's not working out favourably for him, as meanwhile in the pit lane we've got Rosev, we've got Sharples, and most importantly we've got James Foster in from the leader of the G3 AMs, and where will this bring him on out? That's going to be the question. We'll cut to the pit lane very shortly as the drivers make their way onwards. Will Maltrek look for a move here in towards Blanchimont corner? I think the answer is going to be no, but if he carries all the speed through here, surely he's got to be thinking about a move going down into the bus stop chicane. Well, here they come, and Maltrek ducks the inside, but in the end it's not enough, and Connolly's getting made to try and go deep into the corner, gets stopped in time, albeit a slightly compromised line, but then we come to Foster. He's currently parked in the pit lane, and as he sits there at the moment, well, the car's released, but how far away is he going to be from Connolly? That's the question. Well, Connolly comes on through, and there's the delta, so Connolly will still be ahead of Foster for the lead of the G3 AM class, but Foster has gained time as a result of this fighting, so now that gap to Connolly will have come down. In fact, there we go. That's the gap in a single image on screen, with John Davis just behind, and credit where it's due to John Davis and the wrong stuff. He's really enjoying a solid run for third place in the G3 AM class here. More than that in a brief moment, but Foster now knows the gap is 4 seconds between himself and Connolly, and he will go on the charge. We see there Daryl Norquette taking a run wide on for Rouge and Blanchimont in order to dodge the GT3 AM second place runner, but right now the DCW racing driver just keeping his head down and carrying on as we look to the leader of GT3 AM. Maltrek looking up the inside, but again I think trying to pull himself out the toe there rather than look for a move under braking. And I think somebody's saying to Connolly, look, hold your line, I just need to bleed the overspeed here as we make our way onto the brakes. But from them, let's come to two old dudes in cars. And I'm not trying to talk about their ages here, I'm talking about the team, because ODIC is the McLaren and also the Mustang there. It's Darren Sharples ahead of Kasper Brøckner as they fight over second place in GT3 Pro, and with Eric Rose have been 8 seconds ahead and gradually gapping them little by little. Right now these two, I think they're trying to work together, but they're also the mindset most likely they're going to do a bit of battling between each other as the race distance goes on, roaring the way into the Fangio chicane, but nothing between them right now. Two different cars, two drivers of the same team, and just enjoying their respective machines. In towards Stavlo 1 they go, and as they do, one more pit stop still playing out. Our two overall leaders, Patrik Thomsen and Zander Hill, yet to pit, but we have had Nathan Foster coming in from what was at the time second place over in GTB, so I won't be surprised if we are going to see pit stops from Thomsen and Hill sooner rather than later, as Jarrett Lee just left the pit lane after making his one scheduled stop for the day. But Brøckner close, but will he look for a move here as they make the way through the long left-hander of Blanchimont? I think at this point Lee Dane is a bit too far back. That looks to be about 3/10 of a second, that gap, as he heads onto the brakes, and as he does, just waiting right now, letting Sharples take his natural line, but of course a little bit of personal pride on the line between these two as they fight over the second place spot. Will be a big result for old dudes in cars in the teams championship, and that's why they won't want to push each other too hard, because the one thing you never do in racing is you never have contact for an instant with your teammate, because to do that, well, it puts the entire team at a compromised position, and they'll know that better than anybody as they roar the way out of La Source and run the one through there. Well, Brøckner taking a brief excursion to the gravel with his left-hand side tyres, I think pushing hard, and the Mustang just not rotating as much as he wanted it to. But as they make the way onto the Kemmel Straight very shortly, well, from them, let's look to the GT3 AM battle here for 5th place in class between Hartley and Jones. And these two definitely have been in the thick of the batting over the course of the race distance. They've still got 20 minutes to go. It's a long race ahead of them still, but they're going to be enjoying a good little scrap here. Good little ding-dong battle for the final spot in the GT3 AM top 5 as they make the way on down the old start-finish straight. and up towards Origin Radion. And well, we definitely have seen that this Acura, as we ride on board the front bumper of Richard Jones's 99 for SAS Racing, the sparks flying in the face of the camera. Well, this Acura definitely has not been a stable customer here today, but it has also proven to be quite a fast customer in the tow as he gets close to the back of this Acura, and Hartley there going defensive in the middle of the road. Just a little bob and weave, putting himself right down the centre line. Jones looking to the outside here, gets close. Does he think about going all in on the brake? And the answer is no, he doesn't, because Hartley there holding on to his position quite nicely, albeit the traction off of turn at number 6 there in the favour of Jones, but has to back off, getting so close to the back of the McLarens. They now make their way down to a Rivage corner, and to similar cars in terms of their drivetrain and in terms of their engine power plants, albeit getting speed in very different ways over the course of the lap. You should see a big slide there from Hartley coming down for Rivage. Jones, meanwhile, cutting his way nice and tight to the apex of X corner. This is going to give Jones a huge opportunity here in terms of being right tucked in behind Hartley. But the problem is, now that he's this close, what can he do on Tapun? And the answer is, he can't really do anything. He's too close to try and make a move here, and it's a corner that's not going to actually let it happen. From them, we look to 2 wide between our GT3 battlers. That's Maltrek versus Conley, the battle between the GT3 AM leader and the 5th place GT3 Pro driver. Maltrek's going to go all the way around the outside there through Stavlo 1 and Stavlo 2 to take the overall position back for 5th place in the G3 category overall. A great little battle between these two. And it's understandable. I think Conley enjoying this fight, but the thing he's got to worry about is that only 3.5 seconds behind is this man who you see making his way into the camera shot, James Foster. But Foster as well, John Davis is not going away. If anything, Davis is closing up. And I wonder whether, if Conley and Maltrek continue to fight like this, could John Davis potentially find a way to take his first win of the season? Albeit, I'm going to theory craft it here, ladies and gents. We've got 20 minutes to go, or thereabouts, plus the final lap. But out of these 3 right now, Conley, Foster and Davis, well, Conley with the battle of Maltrek, definitely not on the pace. Foster, meanwhile, his pace is practically the same as Davis. Davis is keeping Foster honest at this point. He's definitely looking to be in a happy place. But as he does so, well, there's still plenty of mileage to go. And that's not to dispel James Foster here. Right now, I think he'll be very happy with a 2nd place finish, but he'll want the winning class in order to put the pressure on Edmondson going into the season flying, because Edmondson is in 4th in the class at the moment. But Foster right now, I think he's looking just as much behind him as he is in front of him, and it's not necessarily a good sign. But as he roars his way down the Kemmel Straight, more to go, and with that, well, I'm hearing there's been a bit of drama further down the order in GT3. Jones and Hartley have had to come in together, and here's the replay to explain what's happened. So that was coming out of Blanchimont corner. Now Hartley, as he made his way through, goes into the middle of the road there, pulls across, and it's going to be Jones diving up the inside at the last minute. Oh, goodness me. Well, that's going to be a difficult one to tell. Jones would argue that Hartley decided to come across him into the apex. Hartley would argue that Jones has dived to the apex. Well, 2 very different interpretations, I suspect, from both drivers there, but both going for it, and they've resumed the racing, but their fight going up a notch there, and well, Indian some contact coming between them afterwards. A great little scrap. Well, Indian things got a bit heated there, but I'm sure all will be forgiven as they make their way back up to speed. Well, as they do, we come back to you live at Racing Pictures, and this time we look to Ryan Walker, currently running 2nd in LMP2, albeit yet to take a pit stop, so therefore he will be promoted. He'll be demoted back down the running order once he's taken that stop. But staying out there long after the spin right at the start of the race, and that's all he can do right now. Stay out of trouble and just stay in the relative company of his own car, and just see if he can put in the lap times in order to promote himself through strategy. There's a solid drive here from Ryan Walker. Indeed, it's not about how you start a race, it's about how you finish it. But speaking of finishing races, well, right now Tom Farr and Jarrett Lee running nose to tails. They make their way down the Kemmel Straight. I believe Lee may have made the move on Farr right at the start of this lap. or just before the start of this lap, in fact, from what I'm hearing in my ear, it was made on the previous lap, and Far right now close to the back of Lee, but I think Jarrett Lee is just gradually running off into the distance here as he comes down into the braking zone for turn 8, and the number 115 driver's next target with Ben Cullen. Oh, goodness me, Far goes late on the brakes there, big lock-up that sends him sideways into Ravage corner, gets it back under control. But here comes James Acklam now looking for an opportunity, and Acklam, who's been outside the battling for some time, I think he's very grateful for this as Far slides loose coming out of each corner. You can tell those tyres are absolutely scorching red hot, and Acklam not able to get close enough to go side by side into the braking zone, and in the end has just tucked in behind that Pearl corner. Elsewhere, Cullen has lost out on a position versus Lee, as we can see a lot of gravel kicked up there, and it is because Ben Cullen went out into the gravel at Pearl corner, but Acklam so close to the back of Far there, I think he missed his braking zone looking at the rear of the DDK Racing Team machine. Any closer, and I think both of them would have been off together, but Acklam right now, well, he's absolutely breathing in the exhaust tubes of the car in front as he goes deeper under braking into Stablo 1, and James Acklam, he's just got to get this car settled back down. Definitely this LMP2, this Dallara 217 machine, I don't think it's in a happy place right now. I think Acklam just put a little bit too much heat in those front tyres. as a result of running the dirty air of far and also being heavy on the brakes. And Lactum's now got to get it back together here in order to go hunting, because he's got the pace, or at least he's got the willingness to try and find the pace, but he's also got to keep it steady if he wants to try and break his way back into the top 5 of the LMP2 class before this race is over. When he does have Cullen and Far right in front of him, and Ryan Walker's into the pit lane, where you can imagine the belief will be they can definitely chase the top 5 finish over the course of distances. There's Walker parked up. He leaves the pit lane now. He's had his service, but that's going to put him all the way down to 7th place. Last of the remaining LMP2 runners. We have unfortunately lost Simon Bamber over the distance, and well, we have only had a very limited number of retirees today. So far we've had 3 retirees, Cy Hartley being one of them, Sean Cranny Swash being another, both GT3s, 1 AM, 1 Pro, and then we've had the LMP2 retiree of Simon Bamber, and that is all our retirees thus far, ladies and gents. But hopefully we don't see any more. It's unfortunate, but you never know what could happen here at Spa-Francorchamps as Walker makes his way back out, and he'll know 5.5 seconds is now the gap between himself and James Ackland, who's up the road as he looks to go on the hunt. But as he does run his way on down the Kemmel Straight and looking to try and go for an opportunity, well, from them we look to John Davis, who has found his way past Kasper Brøckner recently. There is Brøckner in the rear of the pictures. Brøckner got damage on that. Oh my good lord, yes he has. That's had a huge shunt as that Ford Mustang for old dudes in cars. With everything going on left, right and centre, let's try and find out what's happened to Kasper Brøckner, because he has been passed and not in a happy state. That car definitely looking heavily wounded. Well, they are on lap number 19. It's happened on this lap. What's happened to him? I think that's coming into the pits. I think crowning Kasper Brøckner as your GT3 Pro champion. Well, he's not going into the pits. He's going to try and carry on out there. But how that car is in a state to keep on going, well, the stewards have decided otherwise. The automated stewards, and right now as he heads across that timeline, 15 minutes to go, I think it's going to be through sheer will at this point. He's going to get to the end of the race. But can we see what happened to the car? And the answer is yes, we can. And here's the replay. Now, this was Kasper Brøckner, mate. Ooh, goodness me. Well, it's happened before we cut to the camera shot here in the replay. And this was Christian Maltret making his way on through. I think Brøckner's had a moment with the wall at turn number 1 that we haven't got anything to tell us what's happened to this Ford Mustang, only that he's been passed by multiple cars. So it stayed on the circuit when it's happened. I think Brøckner's had a huge shunt to the barrier into turn 1 or something along those lines. And he's been able to keep the car going, but at the cost of the state of the car, no doubt about it. Well, that's a surprise. He just crawls along there down the Kemmel Straight. So Brøckner carrying on, but definitely not at the speed he wants to be at the moment. And with 14 minutes to go, well, I think it's going to be a GT3 Pro machine right now. It's going to fall all the way towards the back of the field, but Brøckner just wants to get the points in order to lock this in as a drop score it is at championship season. And well, he'll still have a huge advantage going into the season finale at Detroit in a week's time, but I think it will mean it will go down to the wire theoretically, albeit he'd need everything to go a particular way against him in order to see the results go away from it and that championship crown not to be his. Meanwhile, change of position there, GTP on screen, that was Zander Hill passing Nathan Foster for third place in the GTP class as we did a Foster go straight on into turn 1's gravel trap. He's rejoined, and Foster now right back behind Hill as they make the one down. Well, these two old rivals, indeed, you've seen them battle plenty of times in GT3s. You'll see them battle here in GTPs today, albeit Foster not close enough to look for the move, but what he will do is he'll stay absolutely glued to the back of Hill as they make the way through Lecom, and as they come out of the triple chicane, we're now down towards Rivage they go. Foster thinking about it here in the Porsche Line 6-2, but then realising there's not really going to be a way through, and of course one of the disadvantages he'll have versus Hill, he'll have an all-wheel drive system in that Ferrari 499P. Meanwhile, Foster does not. It's a mid-engine rear-wheel drive, and therefore what he's got to do right now, oh goodness me, it's a big step that I was about to say, is try and get the best possible corner exit. But of course, when you've only got a two-wheel drive machine, the problem is if you're a little bit too eager on that throttle, suddenly you get a lot of oversteer, and Foster experiencing exactly that as he made his way out of exiting towards Pearl Corner. Behind him is one of our LMP2 cars that's putting some pressure on Foster, and the LMP2s will be just about the same speed through the middle sector of the lap by comparison to the GTPs, but it's in the first and the final sector lap. That's where you'll see the delta in the lap time for the GTPs really blow out. But as Foster gets a lovely run through Stavlo 1, Hill meanwhile taking a little bit of gravel, going a bit wide with some understeer creeping in, wakes out the corner, and now Foster will get his head down. Half a second is the gap as they power out towards Blanchemont and subsequently the bus stop chicane. Will he be able to get closer here? Will he be able to look for a potential move? Well, I think the answer will be no on both accounts. Will be at the toe, will bring within 4/10 as they exit Blanchemont. I think Hill in fact just picks up some traffic there, and LMP2 just in front of him, but the problem is that Foster now needs to negotiate that traffic that goes side by side with Hill, so this could be a big opportunity for Foster to get closer as they come out of the final corner to go on to another lap. In terms of who that is crossing the line, that is Ben Cullen, the fourth place LMP2 that they're putting a lap on. So Cullen in the end being a little bit obstinate and just holding his line, but to be fair, in the rules it is for the faster drivers to make the pass safely, and for the lower class drivers drivers or the slower drivers to essentially provide a means of facilitating the pass only at the discretion of the faster class of drivers in terms of when they get alongside. So therefore, the slower classes are expected to hold their lines, and it is the faster classes who are expected to make the move happen. And Hill in the end coming into probably the worst possible time in order to try and make the move, and understandably, Ben Cullen right now does not want to give any ground because only 1.5 seconds behind him is Tom Farr, and you can see Farr in the rear of the picture there being flashed by the Cadillac of Jon Williams as they make the way down, and Williams trying to close up to this as well, because I think Williams has noticed off in the distance 5 seconds up the road is Foster versus Hill, but that's going to be Farr. They're cutting back up the inside of Williams, and Tom Farr does not want to let this go either because they're all chasing each other down at the moment. And well, as they do in the LMP2 or the GTP classes, well, these two classes will be stepping over each other. They're stumbling on each other at this point, but that's what makes the multiclass racing actually at Spa-Francorchamps so intriguing, in the fact that both drivers want to chase their next adversary up the road, but the problem is neither one wants to give way to the other, so they both start to lose some effective time on each other in two machines that have got very similar speeds in the middle portion of the lap. And well, for Williams right now, I think it's going to be one of those games of, okay, bide your time, sit behind the LMP2 and get it done right at the end of the lap when you're going to have a bit more speed, or right at the start of the lap again. We're looking from them to James Foster, where he's looking around the outside of Maltret into the bus stop chicane. Well, Christian Maltret did not make it easy for James Conley, and I get the feeling he's probably going to have the same stance versus Foster. In fact, he's just enjoying the racing. Foster tucks in here, but as he does so, well, right now 0.6 of a second is the gap with 10 minutes to go between these two as they make the way down towards turn number 1. And Maltret definitely enjoying a very fighty race today in terms of, I think he came here today to get his elbows out a little bit and enjoy the experience, but no qualms there with regards to the way he's raced. I think he's enjoyed himself all the same as they roar the way on down towards Rouge, and then Radion, or should I say up to it, after going downhill for a brief moment with regards to the elevation change, and then suddenly a huge elevation change upwards. Well, right now Foster falling a bit further back there. The gap now 9 tenths to Maltret. He will close up down the Kimmel straight, but by no means will he be in an attacking position unless Maltret has something completely wrong down the straight, such as a missed gear. But as James Conley makes his way into the foreground of our camera shot, the cameraman focuses on the McLaren driver, your GT3 AM leader at the moment, and will definitely right now continue to try and just run away from Foster at what is a steady rate of knots. The gap on the previous lap was in fact, at the start of this lap was 4 seconds, and it may be the case that gap opens up a little bit more by the end of this lap, given that now Foster is definitely in the dirtier Maltret and having to try and find a way through as they come down through X-Bend, and then you can see where the other two in the big conversation are, albeit as he runs wide. The Maltret definitely taking a bit of an excursion, then some taking the gravel with him back onto the circuit. Well, also John Davis there a little bit further back, 2.5 seconds back here in the wrong stuff driver. He's putting on the pace here. He's still matching Conley and Foster for pace, if not faster on average. He is trying to close up as much as he can, but I think for Davis the problem is he's now having to deal with the traffic coming at the wrong time, and therefore the pace he is bringing to the table, it's not enough to bring that gap down substantially in order to feel as though he can put that pressure on for second place. But don't count him out yet. It only takes one bad intervention of traffic, or it only takes one mistake from a driver in front, and suddenly John Davis could be right there for the battle for second with Foster, if not the battle for the GT3 AM win, as he makes his way through Stavlo 2. And coming out the corner, well, that's very close there, as our LMP2 tucks in behind him, and that is James Ibram, the second place LMP2 runner. And in all of this, whilst we're talking about what's going on in the GT3 class in the GTPs, James Ibram and Øystein Herfjord once again have seen their places swap. Ibram is down behind Herfjord at the moment, and on lap number 19 there was a change of position, albeit Ibram did come into the pit lane shortly after that. But can we get a view as to what happened in their battle for the lead of the LMP2 class? And the answer is yes, we can, as Tom Farr has just found his way past Ben Cullen, who's into the pit lane. I think Cullen's had to tow to the pit, but firstly, this is how Øystein Herfjord got ahead of James Ibram, and it was on lap number 19 for them. So this was Herfjord going to the braking zone. Oh, goodness me. And that explains the story there. That was the incident of Cy Hartley and what was Richard Jones' instance. So Ibram came into that to take the escape road there, and it cost him the time as he then made his way into the pit. And that explains how they swapped the places effectively. It was on the time lost for Ibram in the pit stop, or at least trying to come into the pit when he came into an encounter between the two GT3 AM drivers. So Ibram once again somewhat being a little bit cursed by the traffic he encountered. But in a similar vein, whilst all that was going on in terms of the replay, we also had an incident for Ben Cullen, which has seen him have to be towed to the pit, and I believe the cars had to be retired, and this is what happened to Ben Cullen only moments ago. Now coming out to Stavlo 1 into Stavlo 2, turns in there, nothing untoward, bounces a little bit off of the curb, and the car just goes straight on. I wonder whether he had not enough fuel in the car and therefore had to tow it to the pits. Perhaps he realised and thought, okay, you know, we've got to park it up here. It's going to be towed. It's not getting to the pit lane. But either way, for Ben Cullen, his race has come to a grounding halt, and he will be our fourth retiree of the day as we come back to your live racing with 6.5 minutes left on the clock. We've got Jack Barker into the pit lane again. I wonder if he feels those under fueled. Xander Hill's just been in an instant, and that's been at Revenge corner, I believe, as this is footage of him making his way past X corner and onwards. But Hill's been in an instant. That's dropped him all the way down. I don't think he's too happy. I think he's flashed his lights there at Jarrett Lee, or at least somebody who's inconvenienced him, or he thinks he feels has inconvenienced him, I should say. But as he makes his way down through Pullman corner, well, can we get a replay of what happens to Hill? I think we can shortly, but right now we'll just try to understand what has happened and to the whole field as we get an update there from Cullen in the Twitch chat. That's Cullen1690 to say that unfortunately he's got to jump to another race, so he's having to attend another race there, and we'll appreciate the heads up, Cullen, as he makes his way on to his next race. Indeed, a busy man. Indeed, many of our drivers here being very busy drivers as they roar the way on through. Well, right now Hill on the attack as he continues to move forward, albeit to try and cut his way past LMP2 traffic, and that'll be up the inside of Jarrett Lee before Blanchemont corner. He drops a number of places. He drops all the way down to 6th in the GTP class and overall, and this is exactly what happened to Xander Hill. As he's making his way down, battling there with Nathan Foster. We said there was a good battle between them, but Indian tucks back in, under braking. Car goes a little bit deep initially and carries too much speed into the corner, and the rear just lets go, and as he tries to get it back together, looks one way, then the other, and that enabled Jon Williams to come through, and Andreas Nornov there sweeping around the outside to the inside at a last-ditch measure in order to move up into 5th place. So for Xander Hill, a frustrating moment there, but thankfully not one where he's gone to the barriers, and he's been able to get the car pointed and back on the surface, albeit with the amount of time remaining, a 4-second gap to Nordenov. I wonder if he can look for that move before the end of today and potentially chase a 5th place. We'll have to see. As our drivers continue to push onwards, well, now all of our battles are mostly separated out for the moment. We will see what is going to happen in due course. As hold up a second, Darren Sharples, he's just crawling along there at Lacombe. What's happened to Sharples' car? That's not going anywhere. Has Sharples missed out in terms of fuel in the car? Well, he's going forward at the moment, but what on earth has happened to him is the question. He gets going after the traffic clears. I think Sharples there just being cautious not to start the car until he cleared all the cars around him, but that is a sudden change, and that is going to promote a number of GT3 Pro drivers up the order. We'll cite Anthony now in all this, moves up into 2nd at GT3 Pro, Christian Lautrec up into 3rd, Sharples falls to 4th, but what exactly happened to Sharples? Here's the quick replay to explain. And this was coming down to the Lacombe chicane. Under braking he went. Does the car go round here? It does. Mounts too much the apex curve there at turn number 5, and the car just went round, and Indian gets it turned around, and I can imagine as he did so, took his time to make sure he didn't come into contact with any other drivers, and we'll try to play it as cautiously as possible. Nathan Foster having to take a void in action, James Conley as well, and Jon Williams, and that was why we did see Sharples then park up, because obviously with the field coming through, he didn't want to inconvenience anybody if he could help it. But coming back to your live racing, well, it's absolute heartbreak for Old Dudes in Cars with the fact that both of their drivers have fallen outside of the podium places. They were running 2nd and 3rd in GT3 Pro for a long time, but Kasper Brøckner's car has ended up in the barrier, but it's still out there carrying on, and Darren Sharples with a spin. That puts him out of the podium positions with a 13-second gap to Christian Lautrec. Well, right now with 3 minutes to go, Old Dudes in Cars, it's suddenly gone from a day of happiness to a day of dismay, and it's not a happy one at that. They're going to have to get everything done at Detroit now, as we've got more to come in this race, no doubt about it. Matt Edmondson there having Amit Rajik Ghosh looking up the inside of him, the GTP 7th place runner looking up the inside of the GT3 4th place runner. Can't quite get through there as they make their way through the chicane, but now he'll have the speed and the acceleration, and he'll look to go around the outside coming down towards La Source for what will be for them most likely the penultimate time as our race leader at the moment. It's all the way through the Fanja chicane and into Stavlo, so we might get 2 more laps after the current one for the GTPs. We will have to see exactly where they fit into the order and how quickly Patrik Thomsen can make his way onto lap number 29 of today. But all the battles have definitely calmed down out there, but what we are seeing right now is a rise in instance and major amounts of mistakes for drivers, some of their own volition, some with other drivers, and it could be the case that we're due a few more late twists in the tail. And speaking of one that's potentially coming on the horizon, Nathan Foster running 3rd at the moment in GTP and on course for his best result of the season. He's got Jon Williams fast approaching. There you can see Williams in the rear of the picture, and also Andreas Nordenhoff as they come in towards Perm Corner. And Sonny, it's a freeway fight for 3rd place on the GTP podium. But is it coming too late in the day, and can Foster hold on for a little bit longer? Because after a 7th place start in the GTP class, I think Foster right now will be absolutely trying to clutch onto the steering wheel, and the team will be praying that he can bring it on home. Well, if he can, it would be a great achievement for Foster, given moment. It's not been the best of season so far for the 52 driver, but for Empire Motorsport, sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't, but they know how to roll with the punches. And as he makes way out of Stablo 2, we're just pushing onwards as Austin William Campbell further up the road by 30 seconds. Well, he's off in the distance, and Foster doesn't have to think about the guy in front. All he's got to think about is the guys approaching behind. But for Austin William Campbell, your second place runner, as he makes his way on towards Region Radion, sets a personal best of the race at a 202.25. It's not the fastest lap of the race. The fastest lap in the hands of Patrik Thomsen, a 201.4. A qualifying time effective for Patrik Thomsen. My good lord, the man's found time out of nowhere. And Austin William Campbell right now, well, definitely another second place today where things didn't work out at the start. And Patrik Thomsen has gradually shown over the race distance that he's had the aces up his sleeve to extrapolate that lead and just inch it out little by little. But as our second place runner makes his way on through, well, here's your race leader with 40 seconds left on the clock. We do believe this might be his final lap. He might be within reach of making it 30 laps, and if so, it's going to be very narrow, and I wonder whether some drivers have prepared for 30 laps. If not, well, we could see some last gasp fuel tanks out here, and that would be a surprise, and not a welcome one to be certain. But coming down the Kemmel Straight here, well, we do have Andreas Nornhoff closing quite rapidly on Jon Williams as they come down to the braking zone for Les Combes, but he has got an LMP2 between the two of them, trying to discern which one it is. I think that's the second place LMP2 of James Ibram. So as they roar the way through, well, right now Nornhoff here finding the traffic not being kind to him, as he is going to look up the inside into the Ravage corner. He's going to make that a last gasp stitch for a dive, and he makes it work out. But from them, we look to the front of the field because of Patrik Thomsen. It has been a day we absolutely delivered in qualifying, and over the race distance he's been untouchable, and with it Patrik Thomsen will take victory, and provisionally he'll become your Season 3 GTP champion, ladies and gentlemen. And what a drive for Williams Sim Racing Academy. Well, if it is his championship crowning race, it's one that he's definitely well earned and well deserved, because what a drive. As meanwhile, the runner-up in GTP today, it is going to be Austin William Campbell. It didn't start well this race. It went deep at the source in lap number 1, but in the end he's brought it on back and finished second once again. And well, that second place in the championship now definitely swinging more and more his way, but he knows that today has not been the round he's wanted it to be. A bit further back, that's going to be Kasper Brøckner, who survives to 6th place at GT3 PRO. That does mean the championship will go the distance to Detroit, albeit favourably for him, and this will become a drop score of his day. More drives to make the way through, and next up it will be your LMP2 winner of Øystein Herfjord, who with another victory, well, he will level the score going into Detroit between himself and James Ibram, and it will be neck and neck between them. Just behind us, Nathan Foster taking 3rd place in GTP, and his best result of the season. What a drive from him ahead of Jon Williams and Andreas Nornhoff. We then do have James Ibram, the runner-up in LMP2, and another second place here, and another frustrating result, it would seem. Eric Rosev will take what will be the victory in GT3 Pro and continue his untouched run of victories in the class when he's been on the grid, but it'll then be a little bit more time before we do see Sight Anthony come through. And what a drive this has been from Sight Anthony. He will be taken on home at 2nd place in the GT3 Pro class, and I don't think he's going to quite believe it, in the fact that it's been up, it's been down, it's been around, but 2nd place will fall to him, and the Dragon Rezio driver will hold on to it by the best part of what will be a couple of seconds from Christian Maltret, who might have been one of the slower GT3 Pro drivers here today, but through cool, calm and collected consistency, he finishes 3rd in the GT3 Pro class. James Conley, he's your winner in the GT3 AM class, returns to the top step after a long absence. What a drive from him. And well, James Foster, 2nd place in GT3M. It wasn't the win he wanted, but it's still ahead of Matt Edwardson, and that'll be important in his championship chase, as John Davis takes his best result of the season, a 3rd place in GT3M. Well done to him on a stellar drive to the podium. And Matt Edwardson, 4th place in GT3M. A spin right at the start cost him dear, and he'll now know that he's on the back foot in the battle with Foster going into Detroit, and then he's got all the hard work to do. Another major shout out for this man, Jarrett Lee, who despite the spin right at the start of the race, he recovered to 3rd place in the LMP2 class when all was said and done. What a way to come through the field for him. And indeed, he'll be very happy with that for the Paceworks team. And well, knowing those podiums continue to come thick and fast for the 115 driver, and well, as he calls his way on down, indeed many other drivers do their cool down laps here, including at James Foster, who we do see at just a little bit further on the road. And well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been an incredible race at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. It has been one fraught with drama, surprises and everything that Spa-Francorchamps loves to deliver week in, week out, with international and domestic motorsport making its way to its venerable tarmac. And indeed in the UK Sim Racing Multiclass League Season 3, sponsored by VRS, it has been no different for round 8 of the championship. But with that, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. because after 60 minutes of racing in round 8 of the championship, Patrik Thomsen, winner there for Williams Sim Racing Academy, and with that victory, we do believe it is a provisional crown that falls to the GTP leader, and an absolutely brilliant drive. But with that race for the Williams Sim Racing Academy driver, it was then a 24.5-second gap to Austin William Campbell for Effect Simulations Club Sport, who in the end recovered well to second, but not the result he wanted, and he wanted to have the fight and the chase of Patrik Thomsen, but right now really relegated to chasing second place in the championship when all is said and done. Nathan Foster third there for Empire Motorsport, and what a drive for him to make his way back onto the podium after a long hiatus off it in the 52. 3 different manufacturers on the 3 podium steps there. Great to see the car variety, and Jon Williams understandably frustrated with what happened on lap number 1, and the Effect Simulations driver finishing 4th in the end, but not the way he wanted it to go when he was chasing after second in the championship right from the outset. Andreas Nornov taking 5th for Olympus Esports ahead of Zander Hill, with the Tiki Simsport driver being followed up by Amit Rajik Goj and Daryl Norquette there for Racing Forces to complete your top 8 finishers, all of them GTP and all in the lead lap. It was then a lap down to LMP2 winner of Øystein Herfjord for Effect Simulations Carbon, and taking that victory over James Ibram for Effect Simulations Club Sport, as their title fight will go over the full distance now and be on practically even points, and Jarrett Lee recovering all his way to 3rd in LMP2, 11th on the circuit there for Paceworks Esports. And then Tom Farr and Ryan Walker completely finishing LMP2 field, and then it was in the GT3's overall and pro victory for WSR Esports' Eric Rosef in the Audi R8 Evo 2, and another absolutely brilliant drive there, leading the GT3 field 3 laps down from the GTP class winner, but still for Rosef, he won't mind that because class victory is all he wanted here today. So Anthony, we took the run-up spot in the GT3's overall and in pro class. In the end, the Dragon Razio driver, despite a huge scare coming through Blanchimont corner, was able to survive the scare and make it on home to second place in class, and that will improve his credentials to the second place in the GT3 title fight for the pros, ahead of James Conley, who takes a 3rd place overall in the GT3s, and with it, GT3 AM victory there, and the UK Sim Racing Button driver adds his name to the long list of GT3 AM winners for this season. Indeed, the winner variety has been absolutely incredible, and the 46 driver there went absolutely faultless drive, holding on to that victory. Christian Maltrek, 17th place overall, was your GT3 Pro 3rd place finisher. The privateer who didn't quite have the pace, but what he did have was a calm approach to the race, and sometimes that's how it works out. Well done to the Porsche 992 privateer. And it was James Foster just behind him, run-up in GT3 AM, an important run-up spot there for the DCW racing driver. Some big points to be scored going into the season finale, and John Davis from the wrong stuff round off the top 3 of the GT3 AMs with a 6th place in the GT3 overall category, and his best result of the season there. And I think if he'd had a couple more laps, he would have been looking to try and take a shot for second in the class, but it wasn't to be. But coming from our podium finishers in the overall standings, well, let's talk a little bit about those who didn't quite make it to the finish in the end. And well, the final finisher of the race, as classified, will be Kasper Brøckner, 26th overall for Old Dudes in Cars. And then we did have the retirements later in the day for Effect Simulations Ben Cullen. And also we saw the retirements earlier in the race for Simon Hartley from GT3 AM, Simon Bamber in the LMP2 class, and Sean Cranny-Swash for that huge moment, that huge shunt to the barrier at Blanchimont corner. And well, commiserations for them, and hopefully a better race in store in our season finale in a week's time. But let's come on then to the individual class finisher positions, and as we do, we start off with the GTPs, and here we can see, as classified, Williams Sim Racing Academy's Patrik Thomsen with a 24.2 second victory gap over Austin William Campbell. The Effect Simulations Club Sport driver being followed up by a further 30 seconds from Nathan Foster from Empire Motorsport, and Jon Williams settling for 4th ahead of Andreas Nordenhoff. There's It was Zander Hill, as I almost stumbled over my own voice there, the Tiki Simsport driver, who definitely had a dismal end to his day after fighting so hard for a top 5 finish, not a podium finish, but again, just ending up in arrears. And it was a further 16 seconds to Amit Rajik Ghosh, the privateer, with Darren Orkett a further 10 seconds off, completing the finish in GTP field. But great to see all of our GTP drivers making it to the checker flag. Coming to the LMP2 class, and here we can see the complexion was Øystein Herfjord taking victory by 5.5 seconds for Effect Simulations Carbon over his Club Sport sister team rival James Ibram as they level the field going into the finale. Jarrett Lee taking 3rd, a further 18 seconds back. What a recovery drive there to get himself back within 20 seconds of the top 2. And indeed, Lee absolutely giving it everything there as he hustled his way through the field. Tom Farr, 4th place there for DDK Racing Team, will be a bit upset that he didn't make it onto the podium, but still be happy with the fact it's a top 5 finish. And Ryan Walker the same, recovering well to a 5th place there for Altitude 3M Esport and not giving up despite the early spin. We did see James Ackland 4 laps down in the end, but he will be classified as a finisher. And Ben Cullen, unfortunately, that retirement for Effect Simulations will be a non-finish, as will for Simon Bamber, who retired earlier on in the day. But coming from the Effect Simulations Carbon driver in the LMP2 class, let's come on to our GT3 classes, starting with the pros. And here we can see in the pro category, Eric Rosev, your winner for WSR Esports by 23.4 seconds in the end, and an absolutely faultless drive ahead of Sai and Steve Dragon Rezio. From the Dragon Rezio driver, it was then a further 7 seconds to Christian Maltrek, and then we did see Darren Sharples for Old Dudes in Cars in what was looking to be a certain double podium for the team, where he was the second to fall compared to his teammate Kasper Brøckner, and when the fall came, it was a big drop down to 4th place. Made for races, Jack Barker, who was looking on course for a potential podium after that brilliant qualifying performance. Blanchimont corner sent his Acura around for a spin, and in the end, made for races, dry home to fish a lap down at the close. 2 laps down to Kasper Brøckner, who kept the car alive for Old Dudes in Cars despite all the damage, and then Sean Cranny Swash, the sole retiree, after that moment of almost going over the catch fence at Blanchimont, the anti-sports driver in the end retiring 16 laps in the end. Coming to the GT3 AM class, last but by no means least, and as we can see here, James Connolly taking victory by 3.7 seconds over DCW Racing's James Foster, the UK Sim Racing button driver there, being pushed every step of the way, but today it was going to be his day. Foster, he'll be gutted he missed out on the victory, but all things considered, he'll be happy with the second place in the fact that it does put him into the Championship League going into the season finale. And John Davis there, what a drive from the Wrong Stuff driver to fight his way through to third, and indeed a very strong performance from the number 26 driver. And will can he go even further on the podium next week? That'll be the question on everyone's mind. Matt Edmondson, UK Sim Racing button, did well to recover, given his spin right at the start of the race, but he'll be absolutely fuming with the fact that he had to fight his way through to a 4th place, which already feels like it wasn't worth the points he's earned, but those points could be pivotal right at the end of the season. And from the UK Sim Racing button driver, it was a further 11 seconds to Richard Jones for Slow and Steady Racing, who round off the GT3M top 5. 13 seconds off them, Rob Windsor for UK Sim Racing Irvine, who enjoyed a great batting in the first stint of the race, but then fell backwards in the later stages. And we saw the unfortunate retirement for Simon Hartley for Team DWR with Sim Coach setups. 9 laps in the end, having to retire, but still enjoyed some great battles there, particularly his scrap with Richard Jones all the way through the mid portion of the race. Well, that brings to a close our rundown of the provisional results, ladies and gentlemen, subject to any shorts inquiries, we must emphasise. But with that, of course, we're going to take a breather, because whilst the racing has ended, coming up in approximately 10 minutes' time will be our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. But whilst you are waiting for those interviews, don't be shy and feel free to let us know who you have enjoyed the racing from today. And before that, of course, we do have one other thing we need to do before we do fully step away, and that is we need to do our giveaway draws. Let's not forget about those. And well, in terms of those draws, we are going to be starting off with what will be, the 3-month subscription draw. And, well, we can see that Eric Rose is saying that was a tough hour of racing, wrestling that Audi from start to finish. But give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and we will be getting those draws up and online and all ready to go. And I believe we are going to be starting off with what will be the 3-month subscription draw. And here it is. And well, this draw, of course, is drawn from all drivers who have 0 championship penalty points up to round 8 and have raced in at least 6 of the first 8 rounds of the championship. Now, there was one name that we did have on the list as to whether they would be eligible if they raced this round. It was Joshua Wilson, but they were not on the grid today, so therefore Josh does get removed from the list. So there's all of our names on the board, and without further ado, let's spin the wheel and find out who is going to be taking home that 3-month subscription from the Virtual Racing School. And the 3-month subscription, we're going to Andreas Nordenhoff from the GTP class. Congratulations to Andreas in the fact he's picked that up. And, well, that will be coming his way in the next couple of days. Now we must come on to our 2-month subscription draw, and this is for all drivers who finished round number 8 in any class. Now, in regards to those drivers, of course, we did see some late retirees in this race, and we are just going to bring those up in terms of adding them onto the list. So give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, because the race results are coming into us very shortly, and we just need to get those loaded. So bear with us just a brief moment. And in terms of the finishers of the race, well, we are going to take all the names here, and for full transparency, we'll pop all the names up on screen, and then we will remove those who did not finish the race. So there's all of our 30 competitors who entered into the race, but we did lose over the distance Simon Bamber, also Simon Hartley. We also did lose there, I believe, as we try to get our results in the correct order. Give us a brief moment. It does look as though our result sheet not quite wanting to do what it wants to do off camera. So what we are going to do instead is we're actually going to get all the overall race results up on screen. And that will be on our other screen here. So that way we can get all the right names allotted. And as we do, there weren't too many retirees in this race. We did lose Simon Hartley, we lost Simon Bamber. We also did lose Sean Cranley Swash, who we are going to remove from the list. And there he goes. And then last but not least, we will be removing Ben Cullen, I do believe, who will be our fourth and final retiree from the race. So there he goes. We also, out of fairness, we do have to remove Andreas Nordenhoff because of the fact he's already taken the 3-month subscription home from today. And that's just out of fairness to the fact you can't take both prizes away. But otherwise, all 25 drivers here are eligible. Let's spin the wheel and find out who is going to be taking home that 2-month VRS subscription. And it is going to be Nathan Foster who takes on home a 2-month VR subscription. Congratulations to Nathan from Empire Motorsport. And of course, the UK Sim Racing admins will be in touch in due course about how he can claim that prize. The last prize on our list is the 1-month VRS subscription. And here we are then on screen. And 3, 2, 1, we choose a winner. And it's going to be from the YouTube chat, Sir Bottlejob, who takes on home a 1-month VRS subscription. Congratulations there to Sir Bottlejob, or Jack Barker, I do believe. And the admins will be in touch with him in due course about how he can claim that. So that's all 3 of our VRS subscriptions in terms of our giveaways completed, ladies and gentlemen. Well done to our giveaway winners. Well done to our race winners as well. And now we're going to take a breather and we'll be back for our interviews in approximately 10 minutes' time. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And today we're going to be hearing from 3 of our drivers at least. There might be a 4th driver on his way, but we're going to be kicking off with variety. In fact, we'll be hearing initially from our GTP class winner and our provisional GTP champion, Patrik Thomsen for Williams Sim Racing Academy. Then we'll be hearing from our GT3 PRO provisional champion, as I've been informed, for Old Dudes in Cars, Kasper Brøckner, despite it all went wrong over the course of what was his race. But we'll hear his story directly. And then we're going to be hearing from James Ibram, at least in the LMP2 class for Effect Simulations Club Sport, but I think we might be hearing from both him and Øystein Herfjord once again. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's come straight in to the man who is our GTP champion provisionally for this season, Patrik Thomsen. Good evening to you, Patrik, and well, what a drive for yourself today. These drives, they have defined your season from start to finish, and at the end of this one, you find yourself, subject to confirmation, as our GTP champion for this season. How does that leave you feeling?
Yeah, it was a pretty well done all around race tonight as well. Just once I saw there was a bit of commotion on the first lap, I pretty much just already at that point decided that it was gonna be a try and just take it easy on the tires, save some fuel kind of race, and then if I got caught, well, I would just try and make the Ferrari as wide as possible and go for that strat till the end. And seemingly it paid off. So yeah, pretty happy all around.
Oh, I'd definitely say so. I mean, even before we got to the race, that qualifying lap in the end, taking pole position by 4.5 tenths. I mean, you've made a habit this season of leaving at your qualifying lap until the very last one normally. And on this one, it looked as though it was a final qualifying lap, which even you enjoyed out there.
Oh, absolutely. I had a single tiny mistake towards the end of the lap, but other than that, it was a pretty well put together lap. Yeah, I mean, basically that is one of the laps that goes down in the books as a joyful memory. And just from start to finish was one with the car. The car felt good. It's been kind of tricky, this car in the last couple of rounds. I don't know, but there's some weird stuff going on with the tires, so it boils the tires, and it's so difficult going into the corners because you're basically just like holding on to the car. But yeah, that one lap, everything was just on point. It felt really good.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant to hear, because I can imagine, like you say, having to get the car switched on and in that zone and it feeling difficult otherwise. It's one of those Marmite situations where when it works, it feels great, but when it doesn't, it feels like a nightmare. But coming into the race then, starting on pole, as soon as you came out of the bus stop chicane, it was go, go, go immediately. I presume that was always going to be planned, which was, you know what, make everybody queue up behind you coming out of a low-speed corner where they can't get the power down.
Well, I gotta be honest, I didn't actually plan for it to be like that, but I kind of saw that Austin on the inside kind of, put himself a tiny bit in front of me, so, he would have to slow down a little bit, obviously, to let me go back past, and then I just decided, okay, time to capitalize, put the pedal to the metal and get out of there, and yeah, it really worked well.
Well, it worked fantastically, and after that, with the field all having a bit of difficulty behind you, by the end of the first couple of laps, you were already, I should say, the best part of 4 to 5 seconds clear, and gradually building the gap. I can imagine at that point, then you were perhaps starting to think about, okay, well, I've done the hard part initially, but now the bigger task comes. I've got to deal with all the traffic that's going to be on the road.
Yeah, there's definitely. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy doing this league is the fact that we do have this multi-class racing, and you know, even if you're 4 or 5, how many ever seconds ahead, you can never really be sure because with traffic, anything can happen. We saw that on Laguna. There was a few mistakes from both me and Austin, but traffic definitely also played a part in making that a very, very close race and a lot closer than I probably would have liked it to be. So yeah, you can never really feel safe even if you have a gap out in front.
Oh, very true. I mean, in your mind, did you have any particular ways you wanted to deal with the traffic at certain points on the circuit? Because I can imagine at Spa-Francorchamps, you catch the traffic on, say, the Kemmel Straight, it's nice and easy. You catch it midway through Pullman, for example, and you've got to think about diving or spending a lot of time sat behind it.
Yeah, it's actually after they went on to this season's update, so that the tires got less grip overall. Obviously, as the faster class, you are still losing time, but it's nowhere near as detrimental to the race being stuck behind the car for like a corner. So it's actually much more important now that you maybe lift a little bit going into the corner, get tiny bit of fuel saving in there, and then making sure that you can really just get the power down nice and early and zoom past them, because you have less grip in the corner, you have less traction out of the corner, so you really have to make sure that especially on like the corners where there's a short run between the next one, that you get past the traffic, because if you end up being stuck for another couple of corners, then you really start having problems. So yeah, I just decided, when the gap opened up, that rather take it easy than probably like risk a collision, getting silly penalty, whatever. It wasn't worth it. So yeah, just nice and easy.
Oh, be fair. Nice and easy approach there. And with it, you're able to avoid any chaos. Albeit, like you say, previous rounds such as Laguna Seca, that chaos can find you. It can find anybody. But coming from dealing with traffic to your car choice for this season, we saw you went with the Ferrari 499P. It's been a match made in heaven by the looks of things with its all-wheel drive system. And we saw it in the wet at Fuji. You absolutely were running away to victory there. But what made you choose the Ferrari in the first place?
No doubt, it was 100% the chances of rain throughout the season that solidified my choice with the Ferrari. For tracks like today where it was dry, it's honestly, it's a nightmare to drive. It doesn't look like it, but it is really, really, really tricky to drive, and pulling out the speed of it compared to like the Cadillac or BMW, it's so much more difficult, because you have this nice four-wheel drive that is super nice for traction zones and for the wet, because obviously you're not fighting the grip as much. But on dry tracks with high speed, medium speed, you're just understeering so much. So you really have to like sacrifice a lot on these dry rounds. So yeah, the pick was simply just because it was going to rain a lot by the looks of the season, and yeah, that's why I went with the Ferrari.
Well, I see, and thank you for enlightening us on that. And whilst I must say I'm surprised to hear that the car's a nightmare to drive in the dry, but it's more of a pleasure in the wet, I can see your reasoning. So coming from car choice then, back to the here and now, of course, a victory here today, and a very controlled victory at that, and it's one that secures the championship for yourself as we understand it, with a round to spare. I mean, you've been absolutely faultless this season. Victory in every round you've attended, minus at Algarve, where it was a charge through in the wet. Has there been a particular round or rounds this season that will stick out in the mind?
Probably, honestly, last round at Road Atlanta. Not as much for the race, but more so the qualifying. Talking about the lap I did here tonight on Spa, where that last lap was just everything felt good. Going back to Road Atlanta and that final lap in qualifying I put together there, I have never felt more in touch with like the car and like the sim and everything. It just was like me. I was basically the car in that moment. It was such a nice lap, and genuinely I enjoyed, even though it was only 1 minute and 8 seconds or something, I enjoyed every single second of that lap. It was such a nice drive.
Oh, fantastic. Well, whilst I can't say I know exactly how you felt in the moment, I think many can appreciate when everything hooks up and it is just one motion, it can feel absolutely special. And it's special laps like that that have led you to this crown. But with that, and looking ahead to the season finale, at Detroit in a week's time, I mean, the first question actually has to be, you may have sealed all the championship, but can we expect you on the grid there for our finale?
Unfortunately, and this is just being completely honest, you can't. I will be out of country visiting my family, so yeah, I won't be able to attend. As much as I would have loved to, but we have a day of holiday here, and then it's just easier to book some vacation where you only have to cheat and get one holiday off from work. So yeah, I won't be here, unfortunately.
Oh, that's unfortunate. We would have loved to have seen you on the grid, but still completely understand and hope you have a nice time on your trip out the country. But just before I do let you go, Patrik, I have to ask one final question, which is, simply put, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Obviously for the Williams team, I mean, it's a lovely opportunity getting to drive for them this year. Kind of getting closer and closer, hopefully, to finally fulfilling that dream of going pro in sim racing at one point. And then the team behind the league, and obviously yourself for the brilliant broadcasts that you do week in, week out. It's always so fantastic to rewatch, and just the enthusiasm you put into these broadcasts. It's amazing. Yeah. So thanks to the whole team for putting together the league, and yeah, that will be it.
Oh, well, that's absolutely fair, Patrik. And thank you for your feedback and your compliments to not just the broadcast, but all the team behind the scenes. And we need to say a big thank you to you because you really have been a force this season. Credit where it's due to Austin William Campbell. He's tried to keep you honest every step of the way. But with every step, you've just been able to stay 1/10 or 1 second ahead each and every time. And it's a well-deserved provisional crown. Of course, we'll announce it formally at the end of the racing next week, I do believe. But until then, we'll miss seeing you on the grid in a week's time. It's going to feel a little bit empty without you, but I hope you have a nice time on holiday, and we hope to see you again on the grid in a future season at UK Sim Racing. But until then, well done the win, congratulations on the championship, and have a great rest of your evening.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So here and there from our provisional champion for Williams Sim Racing Academy, Patrik Thomsen in the GTP class. And well, being very candid there, and I must admit, very surprised to hear just how much of a nightmare this Ferrari 499P is to drive, in his own words. Talking about the fact that in the dry, it just wants to understeer and doesn't want to cooperate. But as soon as you switch to the wet conditions, that's where it comes alive. And that's the reason he chose the car in the first place, due to a number of rounds having prevailing wet conditions and opting and to really throw all of investment into the idea of getting the results out of those. But still, even in the dry, absolutely nailing the car, fine laps each and every time. Talking as well there about practically the perfect pole lap at the Road Atlanta circuit, where he felt as though it was him and the car all as one, no disconnect, no differences between the two of them, and it showed in taking that pole lap. And well, now coming into what will be the end of the season, it really has been him and the car every step of the way, as much as everyone's tried to keep him honest, and well done to him, I say. We'll miss seeing him at Detroit, no doubt about it, but given circumstances, he needed to get things wrapped up today, and he's done exactly that, and I'm sure he'll be back on the grid in a future season at UK Sim Racing, and we'll get to see him take on the task again, as he enjoys the multi-class racing, as he said himself, and today also exhibiting another demonstration when's the right time to try and make his way through the traffic versus the right time to sit back, take it calm, and let the traffic management come to you. But with that, speaking of things coming forth, well, we're going to now make our way onto our second interview, and we're going to be speaking to Kasper Brøckner as he gets ready to join us in the interview room and talk about his successes here today in what has been his absolutely brilliant conclusion to his championship charge. And well, give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and we will bring him into the interview room. And in fact, here he comes now. And as he does so, good evening to you, Kasper. And well, firstly, I have to say, how does it feel to provisionally be our GT3 PRO champion for this season of the Multiclass League?
Hi, Paul. Yeah, well, it feels good, but it could have felt better with a better race today. It was not my finest hour, I think. So yeah, it could have been better, but I'll take it either way.
Well, like you say, take it either way, and we'll come on to what happened shortly, but let's talk a little bit firstly about going into this round. I mean, coming into this round, you were very much in control of the championship. You didn't need a huge result in order to seal the deal. You really needed everybody else to have a magical result and for you to have a nightmare, albeit you seem to tick the box of having a nightmare pretty well, I must say, but I get the feeling you'd done all the maths already coming into this round and knew it was practically guaranteed.
Yeah, but it was not... That was not the result of how I would go into the race. I would like to have had a better result, of course, and I drove to get a better result. And me and Darren could have, if we have made a better way of driving, could have been P2 and P3, but that shouldn't happen today. And I think the track today was a bit treacherous, for me at least. A bit too damp, and I hadn't practiced. I had practiced a couple of laps yesterday, I think, in the practice session, but that was completely wet. So it was a completely different race today that I have anticipated, at least.
Well, going on to that then, let's start off with qualifying. 4th place in class, 18th on the overall grid. Not your strongest qualifying points. We've normally seen you at least towards the top 3, if not on the front row. I get the feeling in qualifying that was really a demonstration of what was to come in terms of you practiced in the wet, but a dry circuit, a cold circuit as well. The pace just wasn't there.
Yeah, I had no insight into how it should be in the dry. Of course, I have driven Spa a lot of times, but every time I'm an old guy, you know, so I need to get some practice in before so I can have some muscle memory or something like that. I don't get a lot of practice in. So today, when I've practiced in different conditions, it was just not my, it was not my best result. No, that's correct.
Well, it was a difficult qualifying session, but coming into the race, as the race went on, at least in the early stages, it looked as though you may not have had the pace, but the results are coming through, and yourself and your teammate for Old Dudes in Cars, Darren Sharples, you're running 2nd and 3rd. But then it all went wrong. What happened to you? Because the car 1 minute was fine, then the next minute, all the front bumpers hanging off.
Yeah, it was going out of a turn. I'm not good at names on the turns. I think it was 4th turn before the last turn or something like that, where I just it just washed out and I went into the wall. So it was pretty much race over at that time. But yeah, you were right. It went pretty good. And as we were going along, I think I had a bit of more pace than I got more used to it, I think. But that shouldn't be today. So I hit the wall. Yeah, that was it.
Well, you may have hit the wall, but you carried on. I mean, we saw the car and we thought, surely that's got to come into the pits. But it seems as though you were determined to not have it come into the pits.
Yeah, well, I think it was in the penultimate corner. I think that Jack Barker, he slid and I hit him, so I got some aero damage at the front. So I lost some time on the straights. So Sean, he was getting closer, and so I just need to get into some kind of pit window so I could use the fast repair to get into the race one more time. And I did after, I don't know, 5 laps or something, 4 or 5 laps after I hit Jack Barker. Well, I didn't hit him. He slid and then I hit him. Yeah, so then I made a mistake and hit the wall in that turn. It was the damping conditions, I think, that took me by surprise.
Well, conditions that took you by surprise, but in the end, you were able to get the car to a close. And just talking about your teammate Darren Sharples for a moment, I mean, it all went wrong for you. It went wrong for him as well. I mean, I can imagine the two of you must have been gutted at the fact it could have been a huge points haul for old dudes in cars.
Yeah, it could have been a better. It's not our finest hour. I say that. I also think that if you had been in our conversation on our in our race, it was not fun times. It was bad luck, and it shouldn't be our day today. So yeah, that's unfortunate.
Well, it's not quite been your day today. However, it has been your season today, no doubt about it. You've taken the crown with a round to spare. I mean, when you look back at the season, are there particular moments or a moment that's always going to stand out in the mind?
Well, I've surprised myself to be able to win some of the more wet races. I didn't think of that. I'm not keen on driving in the wets. I like to avoid them practically, so that I could make good a result. I think it was Fuji and Monza. I think it was quite surprising. But yeah, it has been a good season for me at least, with some good results over the time. And and in the end now, my drop scores are pretty high. So even with the bad result today, the drop score goes in and keeps me at the top. So yeah, I'm happy about it, even though I would like to have ended. Well, there is one race left, but maybe you have some question regarding that, and I have some opinions about that. But it could be nice if it was a better result today. Absolutely.
Well, it's funny you should talk about the final race of the season, because I have to ask, you may be our champion, but can we expect you on the grid in Detroit in a week's time?
Of course. Well, I enjoy racing, and of course in this league. And when you comment and make commenting and all that streaming, so yes, of course I'm gonna be at that race. But I don't know about the result though. I'm not. Well, there's a lot of things I don't like, and I also things I like, of course. But road tracks is not my strongest racing tracks. So let's see how it goes. I don't think it's going to be a good one. Maybe it's a replicate of this day. Maybe.
Oh, goodness me. Hopefully not, because you've got a team's championship still to finish second in with old dudes in cars, because you guys are holding on by 9 points over UK Sim Racing Buttered at the moment. I mean, surely that's got to be the focus for yourself and Daz.
Yeah, it was. Also today, Darren said, come on, keep going. We need the points for the teams. And I said, okay, I was ready to just pit the car. But let's take the team points also. There were not many drivers in the race, so even if I finished last in the class, I still get some points, I think. So, and I also think that I rarely rage quit or quit races as such. I like to finish them even no matter how the results is. So we tend to have a good time on our streaming and talks in the team when we're racing. So yeah.
Oh, well, fantastic. I love the mentality that yourself and the team do embody there, that you don't quit until you get the checker flag, and that is what it's all about. But just before I do let you go, Kasper, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, well, my wife actually for letting me race this every Sunday, so she has a good place in my heart for that, and of course my teammates, and yeah, you also, Paul. I really enjoy your commenting on the stream, so that's yeah, and I'm gonna attend next season when that comes. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Kasper, with that, congratulations once again on taking the championship crown. It may not have been the result you wanted today in terms on the circuit, but definitely the title result you wanted. We look forward to plenty more from yourself and Darren in a week's time at Detroit to see if you guys can take second place in the team's championship. But with that, well done once again. Thank you for joining me and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. You too, Paul.
So hearing it there, ladies and gentlemen, from Kasper Brøckner, our GT3 Pro Provisional Champion for Old Dudes in Cars, and we're absolutely happy to get it done today. However, he didn't want it to happen the way it did. I think he was hoping for a much better result here at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, and being caught out by the fact all the practice he had done had been in wet conditions, with the fact that we were having a 16% chance of rain here today, albeit the rain never did materialise, but in all the practice sessions it did materialise for Kasper, and therefore he went into this blind effectively. Albeit by going in blind, it meant that qualifying really became a practice. And we did see over the qualifying distance, 4th place in class, 18th on the grid. Wasn't quite the way he wanted it to go. But then making his way through with a lot of drivers dropping it. But then it was Blanchimont corner, which he came into now, where all went wrong for him. I do believe based on what he's described, where the car was in the wall. And suddenly the race all went backwards. And for himself and his teammate Darren Sharples, when they were running 2nd and 3rd in GT3 Pro, suddenly it ended up all falling apart very quickly, but still didn't give up, made it to the end, picked up some points, and that's why he's your GT3 Pro champion, because he's had his head down every step of the way, and when things haven't gone his way, he's gritted his teeth together and ground out the result, and that is the craft of a champion, as well as those brilliant performances early on in the season where he was absolutely unstoppable, and where we look forward to seeing him on the grid at Detroit to see if he can help his teammate secure 2nd place at Old Dudes in Cars in the team's championship. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our final interviews of today. And again, we're going to be doing another double interview with the Effect Simulations pair of James Ibram and Øystein Herfjord as they get ready to join me in the interview room. And we're going to be hearing their respective stories on what is a title fight, which is going down to the absolute wire, and well, it does mean that they are on parity going into this round on points, I believe, and well, we can't wait to hear their perspectives as we're about to bring them into the interview room. And in fact, I think we can do so now, and give us a brief moment, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen, as we do have both James and Øystein joining me once again. Good evening to you guys. It's a pleasure to have you both back, and I mean, what a time to have you both back in the interview room, in the fact, coming out today, well, going into today, I should say, it was a point between the two of you. But now I believe you're both even on points, and the stakes couldn't be higher after Spa-Francorchamps. I mean, Øystein, how does that make you feel, knowing that you came into this round needing the practice against a man who, in his own words, I do believe, although I may not be quoting him verbatim, absolutely loves Spa-Francorchamps?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that was good. Shout out to Jared Lee as well for taking the fastest lap. That was ideal.
Oh, goodness. Well, also being aided there by a fellow LMP2 driver snatching away the bonus point. I mean, James, you must be thinking to yourself right now, yes, everything was moving in the right direction, but suddenly it's perhaps not moving in the direction you want it to anymore.
Yeah, that was a tough race. Unfortunately, you did quite get it right. I'm not that big a fan of Spa. I'm okay at it, so I had to do a lot of practice for this week. But yeah, things are... I mean, I did as good as I could with finishing 2nd, which is quite annoying, but it is what it is. You know, we hit the reset button. It's, you know, might as well just discount the rest of the season till now and focus on one round to go, and that's the winner takes all round.
Oh, indeed. Like you say, it'll be the winner takes all round next week in Detroit. And apologies for misquoting you there. My memory's getting a little bit foggy as I get older. But one thing we can't forget, and firstly, James, I get the feeling this has been another one of those rounds whereby Øystein hasn't had a race without drama, but you've had a bit more drama out there, particularly a moment where GT3 was flying over the top of you, as we just saw on the replay footage, plus also some scraps and also some moments under braking. I mean, this circuit delivered drama, but you found some drama out there from yourself at certain points.
I think that GT3 is actually flying over was probably Øystein.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness me, it was Øystein,
yeah.
my apologies.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of drama, that might go to Øystein this time. Although that being said, the thing that cost me this race actually was two GT3s coming together right at the bus stop, right in front of me, just as I'm planning to pit, and that cost me about 3 seconds, which is what the gap was when Øystein came out of the pit lane. And I think that's what's really cost me at least the chance for, or at least to fight for the, I think, because I didn't change tyres, which was a mistake. I overfueled, which was also a mistake. So that kind of compounds it. But if that hadn't have happened, I would have come out at least alongside Øystein with already warmed up tyres. So I was about a second quicker on that lap. So I would have got past him at least, and then had to defend for the remaining sort of like 15-20 minutes. So I think if those GT3s hadn't come together, I think it could have been a different outcome. It's hard to know because, you know, these things I can say, oh yeah, I would have been ahead, so therefore I would have held it. Well, I don't know that. Øystein had some pretty good pace coming out once those tyres heated up, so it's kind of hard to tell. But yeah, in terms of drama, I think we equally had the rub of the green and the bad luck on this one, really. So yeah, I think on balance, it was probably about 50-50 on good luck, bad luck for each of us.
Oh, indeed. Like you say, and thank you for correcting me then. Indeed, you reminded me of the moment as you're trying to come into the pits between yourself, Richard Jones, and Cy Hartley. So for yourself, it was a stall coming into the pits with two GT3s having a bit of an altercation. Øystein, looking to yourself, flying Mustangs going over the top of your head. That doesn't normally happen at Spa, but in this instance it does. But beyond that as well, fighting through the traffic. I mean, there were certain points when the two of you separated, then you came back together. I can imagine the experience of dealing with GTPs, which are almost as quick as you at certain points of the circuit, or you're even faster than them at certain points, and then GT3s that are busy battling, was a lot to contend with.
Yeah, it was. And like I think for the most part this race, like all of the races this season, I've had very little drama, like very little with GT3s and GTPs as well. I had a I think it was lap 10 or something, where into no name corner I sort of mounted the curb, so the front tires wasn't on the ground anymore, and then I almost hit the wall on the exit, and that's where I lost the draft to James. And there it was kind of scary because I was fuel saving quite a bit behind him. I think in the end we figured out that I fueled 10 less liters than he did, which also obviously made the gap out of the pits a bit, or 3 seconds. But then again, I think the gap was pretty much exactly 2.9 when he drove into the pits, and it was exactly 2.9 when I came out. So I think with the without the incident in the bus stop there, I think it would have been very tight in the end.
Oh, 100%. But like James was saying, it's a big what-if question how close it would have been. But speaking of tight moments, and indeed how close it is between the two of you, let's talk a little bit as well about qualifying. James, you took pole position again in the LMP2 class this time, albeit only by, I think, if I double-check my numbers here, only by a margin of what was no more than 13 thousandths between the two of you. It's the closest you two have qualified together on the front row of the LMP2 grid. I mean, you must be thinking to yourself every time you get out of the car now, I've just pipped it to pole, but goodness me, the margins are getting so small.
Yeah, that was a decent lap, and I was very nervous because when I didn't do a very good bus stop. So as I came out, and it was losing time to my optimum, and I was like, oh no. And then I saw that I just sneaked it. I was like, right, okay, where is he on the track? Is he got another lap in? And I was like, still just on the circuit, like rolling down the hill, just keeping an eye on the timing board. And then I saw he went over and he did, I think it was a 0.6 on his final lap. And I was like, breathe, you got it. I was quite, I won't lie and say I did let out a small sort of cheer and like relief that I've got an extra bonus point there. So it made the race a little bit easier, and coming second a little bit easier to take as well, because that, as you said before, like we go into the next final round level on points, so that has made a big difference.
Oh, 100%. And from your perspective, Øystein, I mean, qualifying, you came close but didn't quite snatch pole away. Was there a feeling when you left the qualifying session thinking that you didn't do the perfect lap, or it was sort of, what do I have to do to beat James, because it was a good lap?
Yeah, it was the latter. Because that was I think it was because I too practiced quite a bit for this one. I also practiced quite a bit of qualifying, and I think that was a personal best on the first lap of the qualifying session. So yeah, annoying. Last time it was annoying, but this time it was probably more annoying because the gap was as you said, was it 13,000 you said? And yeah, annoying. But no, I think that's sort of and it has been all season. It's the main difference between James and me, I think, because like for over one lap, James will be quicker no matter what track it is. Especially now when he actually practiced a bit. But in race pace, I can sort of keep up, which it makes it interesting. But yeah, he also drives cars that are deadly though, so maybe that's why he's so fast. I don't know.
Well, still, he might drive cars that are deadly, but definitely you both had to take your chances over the course of the racing today. Some of them more deadly than others, and it sets us up for a brilliant finale at Detroit in a week's time. I mean, started off with yourself, Øystein, as the man who's really challenged to get himself into this position to be joint on points. How are you feeling for the street circuit?
I look forward to it. Belle is also one of those tracks it's definitely the best street track on the service. I've never driven this car around the track, so I'm not sure what to expect, but I'll try to keep doing what I have been doing with both the practice and like finding the race pace and finding a strategy, like the fuel save strategy this time. And then we'll just count up at the end, I guess. Would be fun to out-qualify him once, though, this season, where he doesn't like completely bottle the qualifying like last time. So yeah, it would be fun if it was close, but the other way around.
I see. And James, for yourself, I mean, how are you feeling for Detroit, knowing now that you're the man who, going into the midpoint of the season, was leading, but it's all leveled up, and Detroit doesn't take prisoners normally?
I like Detroit. I think Øystein actually has a slight advantage in the fact he's never driven this car around there, because obviously the last time I drove it was when we had the old P2 model and the old tire model, so it was quite a long time ago. So I've got to kind of relearn it, although can I even remember what all the braking points and the speed was? Probably not. So it's gonna be a good race, and as Øystein has said, I think qualifying will be really important for either of us. Although that being said, as long as if Øystein qualifies on pole, I mean he still has to win. So, and if I qualify on pole, I still have to win. It really, and the advantage Øystein has is even if I qualify pole and win. Actually, no, that's not true. I was trying to do maths. No, that was bad. Doesn't work. I was thinking if he gets fastest lap, it's all for nothing. But I think if he gets pole, doesn't win, comes second, gets fastest lap, he wins by countback. So he's got more of a chance to seal the victory of the championship than I do, but it's close.
Oh, 100% it is. And we'll try and work out all the permutations going into next week's round of racing. I'm sure you're doing all those permutations, like you say, at the moment. But let's put the mathematics aside at the moment, because you've been doing all the calculations out on circuit today in terms of battling. And just before I do let you go, starting with yourself, James, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Do I be cheeky and just say I'd like to thank the 2 GT3s that spun in front of me? No, I'll say, thanks to Effect Simulations, because the guys are great in the chat. It's always good. It's always good fun. Øystein as well, great competitor. So I don't. If I end up losing next week, I'm happy to lose to someone of his ability, and we get on well. So it will hurt because I've led it for so long, but I couldn't lose it to anyone better. So I'll end with that.
Absolutely fair. And I do love the camaraderie there in the fact that it's not going to be personal, but I can imagine there'll be some bragging rights between the two of you when it's all said and done, but the team spirit Effect Simulations will take over. And looking at to yourself, Øystein, anybody you'd like to thank or give a shout out to?
Yeah, I have to shout out Effect Simulations. Really great bunch of lads there. It's always good fun. Also, Jarrett Lee, thanks for taking the fastest lap this time. That was necessary. Jon Williams as well. He has sort of brought me back into official racing now, which I needed. I've been out of the official game for about a year, so getting back into that has been really fun. So thanks to Jon for that. And as always, my mom and dad, because they are always watching all of the races. I bet my parents have seen more races on YouTube now than pretty much anyone in the community. So shout out to them.
Oh, absolutely fair. And a big hello there to Mr. and Mrs. Herfjord tuning in at the moment. But with that, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure as always to have you both join me. And I hope to hear from you both once the dust all settles in Detroit in a week's time. But well done on the results today. Congratulations to you both. You kept it absolutely even over the distance, and we will see you both in Detroit in a week's time to see which of you will be crowned our LMP2 champion. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers,
Yeah,
Paul.
you too. Cheers.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our pair, James Ibram and Øystein Herfjord, and well, goodness me, you could cut the tension with a knife in terms of how close it is, but not the tension in the interview room or between them. And the lovely thing about the pair is, like we did hear there from James, saying the fact that obviously there's a rivalry in the camps, Effect Simulations Club Sport versus Carbon, where both of them want to win, but it's not going to become personal in the fact that if one wins over the other, they won't ever talk to each other again. But they see it as a friendly competition, and that's what it's all about. Albeit it's a rivalry that has grown over the course of the season, and James mentioned there as well in the fact that he does feel as though things are now more on the back foot with the way the results have gone since the second half of the season. And the fact that Øystein now does statistically, we believe, I think he's right, Øystein does have a statistical advantage in terms of if things go to count back, that is where Øystein's results, particularly his recent form, may just give him the edge if they're both equal in points coming out of Detroit. However, we're not going to go into all the permutations right now. We will figure that out going into next week's broadcast, so that we can keep up to date on that. But the fact that James there really being complimentary to his rival, and also the frustration and the fact that if it were not for the instant before he came into the pits between himself and two of our GT3 AM drivers, that time delta of 3 seconds. Well, it's a big what-if question, but he reckons he would have been on parity of Øystein coming out of the pits, and we would have seen the battle. But in the end, the pendulum swang from him to the other way to Øystein, and Øystein saying then the fact absolutely putting in the practice, the time, and the effort, and it being rewarded to him in the end with that victory, albeit didn't quite take pole position in qualifying, no matter how much he threw at the qualifying session, missing in the end out on it by 13,000. Such is how small the margins are between the two of them. But getting the job done where it mattered most, as we do see there that instant on screen, albeit Øystein coming into the scene of the instant which we just described. And in the end, knowing now that with also the assistance of Jarrett Lee taking the fastest lap away from James Ibram right towards the end of the race, they are level, they go into the final round equally, and well, it's all on the table as to which of them will be our LMP2 champion in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our interviews to a close. And this evening, you've heard from 4 individuals. It's been wonderful to hear from drivers across all 3 of our classes. We started off with our provisional GTP class champion, Patrik Thomsen from Williams Sim Racing Academy. We then heard from our provisional GT3 Pro champion for Old Dudes in Cars, Kasper Brøckner. And then we've just heard from our LMP2 championship contenders, James Ibram and Øystein Herfjord for Effect Simulations, 1 for Club Sport, 1 for the Carbon team. And well, congratulations to all 4 of our drivers on their performances. And we look forward to plenty more from our drivers who are in the grid in Detroit in a week's time. Unfortunately, Patrik cannot be, Patrik Thomsen that is, but the other 3 will be, and we look forward to seeing them out there giving it all in their season finale. But with that, let's give you an update on the championship standings then, provisionally after round number 8. And as we can see, starting off with the GTP class, well, it's Patrik Thomsen who has sealed the deal with this result. In fact, he's not going to be on the grid in a week's time, but he doesn't need to be to complete his championship charge, in the fact that his drop score, his second drop score, will be another 0 score, and therefore his points will carry forward with the deleted score from Algarve, the second place with the bonus points, well, that'll be upgraded to an actual score, and he will take the crown. The bigger question will it be Austin William Campbell or Jon Williams who will be the runner-up? Austin William Campbell seems to be certain for second, albeit if bad fortune does hit him, then Jon Williams may be able to sneak his way into second right at the close. Ryan Davies, he holds on to 4th, wasn't on the grid today, but we can expect him back in a week's time, given the fact he's locked in 2 zeros as his drop scores now, and the Empire Motorsport drivers are only 2 points ahead of Andreas Nordenhoff, who in turn it's only a further 2 points ahead of Nathan Foster, and it's a further 2 points, I'm not on repeat, I promise you, to Darryl Norquette. So right now we do have an absolutely brilliant, what is 4-way fight for the 4th place spot, and who out of those 4 drivers will take it? And Amit Rajat Ghosh, he may be a further 8 points behind, but he could be a big influencing factor on how those points swing. Joshua Wilson sits in 9th, not on the grid today, and therefore, if he is back in the grid in a week's time, he'll be trying to steal away 8th place. Otherwise, he'll have Joe Newman behind him, who sits in 10th on 58 points. 3 points behind him is Xander Hill, best the rest, and then we have Thomas Cope, Ryan Moles, Matthew Sheraton, and Sam Sherwood completing the GTP standings. Coming on to the LMP2 class, and here we can see Øystein Herfjord leads based on result countback, at least what these provisional standings say. 180 points to him versus 180 points to James Ibram. They are in a dead heat by 35 points over Ben Cullen. It is going to be, by looks of things, an Effect Simulations 1-2, but which of the 2 will be taking it home? And meanwhile, in 3rd place, Ben Cullen. He's only 5 points ahead of Tom Farr for DDK Racing Team, with Cullen having to retire just before the end of the race today. Well, that's given Farr an opening there to creep closer, and the fight for 3rd is on between the 2 of them. Also, keep in mind, we didn't see Helder Gonzalez on the grid today for Tractix Racing, and with 2 0 scores locked in now after today, what it means is, when he's back in a week's time, every point he makes at Detroit, that could see him potentially contest that 3rd place spot, or at least the fight for 4th, so don't count him out. We've got a 3-way fight for 3rd, and then we have Ryan Walker also in the looming window in 6th on 122 points at Altitude 3M Esports, ahead of Emil Koopmans, with Simon Bamber and Jarrett Lee completing your run to 9th. A further 10 points behind, in fact a further 18 points behind, is James Acklam, the privateer who's ahead of Overlimited Racing's Justus Stakiokas, and John Eddowes completes the LMP2 standings. And in the pro class of the GT3s, as we mentioned only moments ago, Kasper Brøckner now, whilst he didn't get the result he wanted today, with the scores that have been dropped when they are updated in Detroit, we will see that he will take that crown by a reasonable margin over Cy Anthony. So the big question is, who's going to be your runner-up? Will it be Cy Anthony, whose great result today, that surprise 2nd place in GT3 Pro, when it puts him in a position now to be leading, but only by 4 points over Jack Barker, who will be licking his wounds after what was an absolutely brilliant result potentially coming his way, but in it went round into the Warp Blanchimont. Behind him, Sean Cranley Swash, only a further 10 points behind, so it does seem as though it's Anthony versus Barker for the runner-up spot, but Sean Cranley Swash could still have something to say about it, as could Darren Sharples for Old Dudes in Cars, albeit those 2 will be in a battle for 4th place. A further 8 points behind is Nathan Anstis, who wasn't able to make it onto the grid today, but expect him to be back in full force. He looks to try and end the season on the high, and he's only 2 points ahead of Eric Rosev, who, if he's back on the grid again next week, well, can he make it a trio of flawless rounds where he picks up the maximum score, given he has been flawless every round he's been on the grid? Christian Maltrek in 8th place. He picked up a brilliant podium position today, and therefore that puts him in the hunt to potentially fight for a top 5 finish, albeit he then has a sizable gap to Tom Weston, and Andy Archer wraps up the top 10 there for Atomic Esports, with the rest of the GT3 Pro standings being made up of Andrew Fairley, Jack Osborne, and Matthew Dion Morris. And then coming to the GT3 AM class, last but not least of our Drivers' Championships, well, provisionally it's James Foster on 172 points for DCW Racing, ahead of Matt Edmondson on 169 for UK Sim Racing Button. The damage, was done today with that early spin for Edmondson, and Foster must now have the confidence going into the season finale that he's got the point in hand. Only 3 points, but 3 points means that Edmondson now can't rely on finishing one place behind Foster and potentially picking up both bonus points. He's got to finish he's got to finish ahead of Foster, and he's also got to score at least one bonus point in amongst it all and prevent Foster from scoring bonus points as well. And that is what Foster's been able to do here. He's pulled off a brilliant result, and it's suddenly spun the championship on its head. From them, James Conley with a great result as well, and that fantastic drive to a win. What it does mean for Conley is that now he holds on to third, and third by 8 points over Rob Windsor, the UK Sim Racing Irvine driver. Things are not going forwards the way he wants them to, and if anything, he's falling back into the clutches of Richard Jones for Slow and Steady Racing. John Davis with that third place finish, he jumps up to 6th place, only 2 points off of the top 5. Can he make a light spring into the top 5? Given the fact if he adds another podium to the mix, I get the feeling he might be a top 5 finisher at the end of this season. But for the wrong stuff driver, it's then Simon Hartley for DWR with Sim Coach Setups, who sits in 7th just ahead of Steve Hughes, and then Satinder Deanset and Alex Brown to complete your top 10, with Daniel Pays, Michael Meyer and Shaminda Deensa completing your GT3 AM standings. But finally, coming on to the Teams Championship standings, where it looks as though all things are going the way of Effect Simulations Club Sport. Theoretically, they can be overhauled by old dudes in cars, albeit it would need a huge point swing to happen and some rather unsatisfiable results to occur to Effect Simulations Club Sport. So therefore, old dudes in cars, we've been thinking more about securing second, with UK Sim Racing Button only 9 points off of them, and it's a further 4 to Effect Simulations. Effect Simulations Carbon sit in 5th on 284, and any of those 4 teams arguably could finish second in the championship, so it's all to play for the runner-up spot. UK Sim Racing Irvine, meanwhile, in no man's land in 6th. They are the best part there of what is 26 points off of 5th, and in return, they are also 23 points ahead of 7th. So really, they're just looking to end their season on a high where possible. Anti-Sports, well, they need to keep Empire Motorsport at bay, as they do at Slow and Steady Racing. We had DDK Racing Team complete in the top 10, only 12 points ahead of DCW Racing, while Olympus Esports, Dragon Rezio, Tiki Sim Sport and Made for Racing completing your team's standings top 15. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to be on the grid or wanting to know more about series and everything that goes on at UK Sim Racing, well, for all that and more, we do recommend you firstly go to our official website, and that's at uksimracing.co.uk, where you can find out all the latest information about our ongoing and upcoming series, and how you can be on the grid or just join the UK Sim Racing community. But if you're more of a social media person, perhaps you're more used to using Twitter, then we definitely recommend you follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_ to stay up to date with all the latest news and announcements from UK Sim Racing. We'll also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our title sponsor for this season, and that is the Virtual Racing School, or VRS. Established in 2016, the Virtual Racing School aims to help sim racers get faster through the provision of top-tier software and hardware which draws upon the knowledge and experience of both real-life racing drivers and sim racing professionals. A VRS subscription, extremely popular with sim racers around the world, provides an intuitive solution for combining data analysis and coaching which may be used by racers at all levels to take their racing to the highest level. Meanwhile, the VRS Direct Force Pro line of wheelbase and pedals offers the cutting edge in sim racing hardware as used by more professional sim racers and real-life racing drivers than any other brand in the world, including Formula 1 sensation Oscar Piastri. So if you want to get faster, be sure to head to vrs.racing today to find out more. That web address again, vrs.racing. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've only got one round remaining, and in a week's time, live from Circuit Side, we will see how it all comes to a conclusion in the US state of Michigan, and in Detroit City at the Belle Isle Park Circuit, we will be crowning all of our champions. 2 are provisionally sealed up. Then the GTB class and the GT Pro class. For one, it's gone the way of Patrik Thomsen, in the other for Kasper Brøckner. But we still have the question of who will be our LMP2 champion in the dead heat of James Ibram and Øystein Herfjord. And the GT3 AM class, Matt Edmondson has fallen slightly behind James Foster as of this round. 3 points between the two of them, but can he spring a late comeback, or will James Foster reach his manifest destiny and take victory in the US of A? And also, don't forget the Teams Championship. It all looks to be going the way of Effect Simulations, but could there be a last-minute spin in the towel? With all that and more, tune in live on Sunday the 1st of June 2025 to see how it concludes. But until then, we've been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.